any other camping trip, I got stuck in a maze and was mauled by a bear. Hey, you want a scary game? Try investing in some stocks right now. I went all in on the coin with the silly dog and lost everything. Here's another real-time Roblox strategy game, Stratagema. I did not read the tutorial, a mistake that my people will suffer for. That's what you get for believing in politicians. My curiosity is kinda killing me. Let's do Don't Press the Button 4. Hold on, what do you mean stay away from the pumpkin monster? What does any of this have to do with not pressing a button? Now we're supposed to press the button. Game 85, I played Slasher Blade. This one's kinda satisfying. Insanely simple, but it fills me with dopamine. You can also just make the game play for you. Why does so much of Roblox have this feature? Now I'm playing Realistic War. We'll see about that. Guys, you forgot to give me a gun. Guys! I don't know about Realistic War, but this definitely looks like a realistic deer. This is a game that I want you to try. Build a plane to crash. All right, Billy, if I don't come back, you're the man of the house. Zeppelin Wars I love based on concept alone. But then I played Ant War. Yeah, that's even better. I hate you all. And it is because you are red. Last 10, and I was really looking for some bangers. Psychic Playground sounded fun. Activities involve smashing things with mind powers. The more you smash, the more powerful you get, unless you've got some Robux. Where's the make him poo his pants ability? It just didn't really hook me. There are more powers, I'm just not playing this for 4 hours to get them. Police Raid Simulator. It's probably terrible, but you'll never know unless you click. Man, this is a nice house. It's got bulletproof windows. All the levels are the same. You break in with no warrant and shoot AI criminals that hardly shoot back. Stop resisting! There's no hostages, no bomb, you just kill everyone, and then you win! Quality police work. At first, I did not like Game 92, but it's one of my favorites. This one's called Dropkick, and it's a straight-up thrill ride. It's a big race down a huge slide. Very fun. And hey, you know what the best part is? You don't have to put in Robux to go faster. Look at this discount Godzilla ripoff. This thing's pretty well put together. Oh yeah, you can tell Molten Godzilla stole Mom's credit card. This is what I get for being poor. The voices told me to choose Squid Game with guns. My expectations were so low, I did not think they could get lower. I kinda hoped we'd be playing Squid Game games, but with guns. But no, it's just a lazy shooter. Here I'm playing Rainbow Friends. It has 1.5 billion plays, so it must be terrible. It's supposed to be a horror game, but I'm a grown man. Nothing's more frightening than a mortgage. You get chased by Rainbow Friends. They're not your friends. They want to diddle you. I spent 2 hours playing the entirety of Speed Run 4, one of my favorites right here. Probably 45 minutes was spent on this level. I hate it! I just had to finish. It was so good, and there's so much more. Go check it out. Game 97 is Hole Simulator. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're a hole, and you swallow things. I didn't think I'd have this much fun. And after about 20 minutes, all I wanted to do was swallow a building. I can't tell you how good it felt putting that object in my hole. It's never coming out. Oh, here we go. That could have been way worse. Didn't even mention your mom. Now I'm in Antarctica. It's good to know if the ice caps melt, I can always visit them in the metaverse. This is supposed to be a fun take on an obstacle course, but it just comes off weird. I fell and broke every bone in my body. Serves me right for going outside. Build to Survive is the name of this game. It really should be called Pay Money to Survive. I built a green box with a chair. Nothing got in. I win. Slide down 100 slides as a slide sounds like the perfect game 100. No, you're legit a slide, and you slide down slides. It's amazing. A human being had this idea and created it. This is art. It took me nearly 12 minutes to slide down all the slides, but I did it. Dad would be proud. If you'd like to see more Roblox content, help this video out by clicking the thumbs up button. You could also click my face on screen to subscribe. It'll hurt a bit, but I like it. Stay notable, Roblox fans. I'll see you in the next one.
I'm building the world's largest lemonade stand to quench the masses' growing thirst for blood.
You just cut this watermelon in half.
Do you think that it can cut through a ballistics dummy? So stick around, because you won't want to miss how this all ends.
This video is brought to you by Norfolk Southern Railways. As the world around us continues to fall further into chaos, we have to remember to be grateful for the good things that we have. As long as we have shelter over our heads, food to eat, and water to drink, then there's still hope that everything will turn out okay.
Well, the water is contaminated. Look, it's filled with worms.
It's a common misconception that collecting rainwater is illegal. In fact, in most states, it's encouraged, though sometimes a permit is required, limiting the amount that can be collected. Lumbriculus variegatorus, also known as blackworms, propagate in shallow waters, feeding on microorganisms. They reproduce by breaking themselves apart, each half regenerating into a new individual worm. And in many states, the use of the water is restricted for non-drinking purposes. But why, besides the potential for natural contaminants, would rainwater be unsafe for consumption? When water vapor forms in the atmosphere, it comes into contact with forever chemicals, a term referring to a group of pollutants called PFAS, pretty fucking annoying substances. So now the hard part. How do I get this on top of there? And well, it turns out forever chemicals have been found in the ecosystem and in the blood of nearly all Americans tested, and have been associated with health problems like cancer, as well as issues with the immune system. So I guess now even the rain is compromised, leaving us to have to rely on bottled water companies and city water systems. Surely they will provide us with clean, safe, drinkable water, right? Get out your tinfoil hats. If you wanted to incinerate hundreds of thousands of Japanese citizens in 1945, you would first need atomic bombs. In order to make atomic bombs, you would need industrial quantities of enriched uranium. To enrich that uranium, you would need millions of pounds of fluoride.
Have you ever heard of a thing called fluoridation?
The Manhattan Project, the secret U.S. military program which produced the first atomic bomb, contracted honest chemical companies like DuPont to start manufacturing fluoride for the war effort. Unfortunately for the farmers downwind of the DuPont facility, the heavy fluoride emissions poisoned their crops, caused their animals and farm workers to grow severely ill, leading them to file lawsuits against DuPont. Lawsuits which, if successful, would result in hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages, create a public relations disaster, as well as open the doors for future lawsuits, all of which would be greatly harmful to the post-war bomb program's increasing need of fluoride to produce more atomic bombs, the weapon that made the United States a dominant power in the world order. This prompted leading Manhattan Project scientists, along with
What is the dumbest but 100% serious thing that someone has said to you? My sister thought diet pills were low-calorie pills. Her actual quote was, "Wait, diet pills aren't for losing weight? They're not just a healthier version of regular pills?" Is it bad that I understand how she could get confused? You stupid idiot. How can there be shadows on the moon if there's no gravity? Working in retail, and a customer came up to me and said in a very angry tone, "What is that noise? You need to tell your manager to fix whatever that is." That's rain. It's raining outside, lady. I will say, when I worked at a big warehouse store, when it rained hard, it was pretty loud. We were in a car and an ambulance passed us with its lights on. My friend turned to me with a very serious look on her face and asked, "If you were a blind and deaf car driver, how could you know how to pull over for the ambulance?" That became her senior quote. I had a similar thought the other day. My younger sister asked me why ambulances have flashing lights. I said that it was to get the attention of drivers, especially those that may be deaf. I then thought to myself, the loud sirens must be to get the attention of blind drivers. You would think that blind driving is an obvious no-no, right? Well, I learned recently that blind people can legally get a license to carry, which is pretty wild to me. My then 16-year-old sister once told me while cutting an onion, "God, why do they put the paper on these onions so tight?" She actually thought the skin of an onion was some kind of wrapper. I used to work in a kitchen, and one of the pot washers was cleaning a slicer, and not exactly being careful. I told him the correct way to do it, so he didn't chance cutting any of his fingers. With a straight face and being completely serious, he told me that he didn't care if he cut his fingers off. It would just grow back, like a starfish. "Hi, is this the Krusty Krab?"
No, this is Patrick.
I was once told that substance dogs at the airport, schools, etc. were addicted to the substance they were looking for, so each airport had a different dog for each substance. This person was a university graduate. They were probably really wasted while watching that episode of Family Guy where Brian becomes a substance-sniffing dog and gets addicted to a certain powder. I bet they saw that episode on TikTok, and then there was Subway Surfer and someone cutting soap next to it. This happened last night at the bar I work at. I get a ticket for 2 Chardonnays, one with ice. All right, one with ice. And one as it's supposed to be. There we go. 3 minutes later, in storms a lady with 2 wine glasses in her hand. Look at this, she says, and somewhat slams the glasses onto the bar. I am a little shocked that the glasses didn't break, and I did as I was told. I looked at the glasses. Yes, one Chardonnay with ice and one without. What's the matter, ma'am? I ask. Why did she get more wine than me? She asked, annoyed. More wine? I ask. There's not more in either one. Both have 120 milliliters exactly, as it's supposed to be. Would you like some ice too? But that one is fuller, and she points at the one with ice. Yes, it has ice in it, I reply. Why does she get more wine with the ice? Why don't I get more wine? Look, this one has that much more wine. Showing the difference between the glasses by pinching her fingers. Well, you get where this is going. This lady didn't understand that if you fill 2 glasses of wine and add ice to one, the ice will make it look fuller. But it's just because the ice takes up space. I had to literally show her that it's just the ice making it look like the glass is fuller, which it of course was, but didn't have more wine. Even then, I think she still thought she was being mistreated. When you have to explain Archimedes' freaking principle to an irate customer, you should win a prize. Doing so sounds frustrating enough in a normal setting. Now picture a crowded bar, 2 rows of people waiting to order drinks, a ticket machine spitting out orders from the terrace and the seating area. But damn, I wanted to end this lady. In the end, I took out the ice from the glass, told her, look, the same. Now I add the ice, just the ice, and there you go. I didn't add more wine, did I? And then she sorta agreed and sat her butt back down. Still don't think she trusted me on the there is no more wine in it part. If I ever open up a service-based business, I figure each of my employees should get 1 F off per year of service. It will be well advertised to our customers that if you are the lucky recipient of said F off, you should assume that you're the worst customer that employee has dealt with in the last year. And you should ban yourself from the premises. While working at my first library job, there was this young college girl, I'm assuming freshman, who came into the public library for some books for class. She seemed to be doing fine, so I leave her alone until she repeatedly makes very frustrated noises, so I offer my help. Can I help you find something? I need the Korean Bible. The Bible in Korean? Yes. We might have that in the international collection. Follow me. I go to said collection and do not find the Bible in Korean. I offer her the Bible in other languages or a novel in Korean. On seeing the text of the Korean novel, she looks very confused. No, this isn't it. I need the Korean Bible. Right, so you basically need the Bible written in the Korean language. No, I need the Korean Bible. It's like the Bible, but it's in Arab. Me trying not to facepalm. Do you perhaps mean the Quran? This is also the same job where my 6-year-old boss asked me what pitcher and catcher meant on a gay blog she happened upon. And when I explained, she very cheerfully walked away saying, well, 'tis better to give than receive. Heard 2 girls talking on the bus to my class. Girl 1, let's go to Hawaii this summer. Girl 2, I wish. I don't like to fly though. Girl 1, it's fine. I think the bridge is almost finished. We can just drive. These girls were students at a university. Okay, so after reading this, I instantly Googled how long that drive would be if a bridge existed, and I found this comment. Okay, I'll bite. I'm not gonna take the it's impossible end of story route here. We all know that's true. Assume, despite all the engineering challenges, someone found a way to safely build a bridge between San Francisco and Honolulu that didn't bankrupt the United States in the process. Consider that it is roughly 2,400 miles between San Francisco and Honolulu. That's roughly the same distance between San Francisco and Detroit. And Google Maps says that it'll take 35 hours to get there, without rest stops or meal stops or hotel stops. Assuming the highway is built to federal interstate standards, I would imagine it would take about that long to get there, again, without stops. Probably about 4 days or so if they actually built rest stops on the bridge. But if you had one bad accident on that bridge, I would expect the time to multiply exponentially. So when is the tow truck gonna get here? AAA says sometime tomorrow. A friend thought human specimen plus store-bought chicken egg equaled a live creature. But in reality, it's just really salty scrambled eggs. Excuse me, can you tell me where Half Dome is? I was outside the Ahwahnee in Yosemite and just pointed at it. Is it behind the mountain? The mountain is Half Dome. Oh, I thought Half Dome was a rock. It's a really big rock. The sad thing is I know Yosemite employees get questions like this all the time. In the valley, I only carry my climbing ropes inside a rope bag, so people don't ask me questions like this nearly as much. Knew a pathological liar in high school, told everyone she was allergic to peanuts and forbade anyone to have peanuts even in the same room as her. One day I saw her eating Reese's peanut butter cups and my friends and I said, "Aren't you deathly allergic to peanuts?" To which she replied, "They use different kinds of peanuts in Reese's that I'm not allergic to." My grandma said she was allergic to peanuts, yet ate peanut butter all the time. She said it was the solid texture of peanuts that made her allergic. I mean, I loved my grandparents, but what the hell? I know all about pathological liars. I used to work with a guy that said he couldn't wear silver watches because his sweat melted them, and if he wore a gold watch, it would make the watch spin out of control like a time travel movie effect. A customer brought in an iPhone with standing water in it. I showed them and explained that is why the phone is no longer turned on. He proceeded to yell at me in front of other customers. "I have a PhD and I can guarantee you water does not do things like that to electronics." I said, "All right," and just returned his phone to him. It's obvious that his supposed PhD degree was a blanket response to any verbal conflict, but even if he did have a PhD, how exactly would that make him qualified in other subjects than the one he studied? Maybe his PhD stood for a pretty huge dent in his head. A friend was totally confident he would be able to survive a plane crash because of his tuck and roll technique. He was 100% sober. Until probably 12 or 13 years old, I was pretty confident I could jump before hitting the ground, in the case of a plummeting elevator or plane crash. I was sure that I could survive a flood no problem if I just put on pull floaties on my arms. I drove past an IKEA dealership the other day with my wife, and she just started freaking out. She yelled, "When did that get there? Can we go?" Then she got really quiet and looked away. I paused and then realized what happened and say, "You thought that was IKEA, yeah?" We've driven past that dealership almost every day for over a year. Marriage, a lifetime of one person saying stupid stuff for the other to mock them about it, and vice versa. It's beautiful. When my husband and I were still dating, we were watching TV and a commercial for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button movie came on. About a minute after it was over, we had the following conversation. Him, "So is that real?" Me, "Is what real?" Like, do people get the disease that Benjamin Button had? Are you asking if people are born old and then age into babies? Yeah, you're right. Never mind. Forget I asked. I have never forgotten that he asked. I've been a cook for 15 years. One time a server asked me to rush a chicken breast she forgot to ring in. I said, "Okay, it'll be a few minutes. It's still a bit raw." "Just give it to me, it's fine," she says. I tell her that I don't feel like giving anyone salmonella poisoning today and she will have to wait. Her jaw drops and her face turns red. She rather belligerently shouts just to give it to her because she's losing tip money. Then adds, "Besides, people don't get salmonella poisoning from chickens, they get it from salmon. You're a cook, you should know that by now." Every person in the room did the slow neck turn of "what the hell did I just hear?" and just stared at her. Dude, it's not a joking matter. Chickenella poisoning is serious. I used to work at Best Buy and I had a customer, lady in her 30s, come in with her plasma television on a flat cart. She says, "I need the plasma refill." So I give her the old customer service fake laugh because I thought it had to be a joke. But the look on her face and the pissed tone showed me that she was serious. I took her to the home theater department, and from a distance I can hear her going off about plasma refill prices. Or shouldn't the warranty cover the plasma? I used to work at a plasma donation clinic. For those who aren't aware, it's part of your blood. And at the place I worked, it was used specifically to help people with immune disorders. We would tell people this when it was their first time. And there's posters all over the place about specific kinds of people it helped. I had someone who was donating ask if there was any way to track his plasma so that he could buy the TV that it was used in. These stories just made me look up at the old plasma TV I have hanging on my wall. My uncle once said, "The earth is flat and the edges are covered with heavy layers of snow that no one can cross." He also said that the moon landing was fake, gravity is fake, and airline companies are in on a conspiracy and so much more. It was a very fun argument, I'll tell you that. You can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. Wait, gravity is fake? I'm curious how that uncle explained why we aren't all floating around then. A girl I once had to work with kept bringing bottles of Pepsi frozen solid to work. One day I finally asked why she freezes them, and she says you take away all the carbs by doing it. You remove all the carbohydrates by removing the carbonation. That chick was dense. You should have played along. If you remove all the carbon, it isn't organic anymore. I had a guy in a pub, completely adamant to the point of red-faced anger, swearing on the Bible that you could see New York from the Dongle Coast on a good clear day. I was in tears laughing. For those who have no idea what the Dongle Coast was, like myself, it is apparently in Ireland. A woman can become pregnant from touching a man's hands. Grade school teacher in Argentina. A woman stopped me in the grocery store when I was in my early teens to tell me that I could cure my acne by rubbing lady juice all over it. I assure you, she was dead serious. Before finding out that the woman was serious, I was curious if that was some form of flirting. It didn't happen to me firsthand, but a friend from New Mexico was asked while in another state if they spoke English, if they needed a passport to visit the US, and if the water is drinkable in New Mexico. I live in New Mexico. I get those questions a lot when I go even a couple of states away. It's more common than you'd think. Well, I live in a state where cowboys are really popular, and when I travel, I've met people who are surprised that I drive a car and not ride a horse everywhere. Do you know how expensive it is to take care of a horse? My stepmom, as she ripped the bandage off my sister's third-degree burn. It just needs fresh air. She then made my sister clean the chicken coop with a large, now exposed burn wound. Of course it got infected, almost killed my sister. She recovered, thankfully. Another gem from the same woman, while scolding us for getting bored and asking to leave after 4 hours in a museum, we could have gone to see Lewis and Clark's first plane. With my extensive experience with fairy tales, it tells me that your stepmom is trying to kill you. Watch out for any friendly woodsmen, and make sure you always carry rocks with you. And of course, know where the local dwarves are. Also, only eat apples that are uniformly colored. My brain automatically went to, don't touch my exposed area, stepmom. I really need to get off the internet. Years ago, while working at a cafe, a couple came up to me and asked me if Saddam Hussein was Russian. The Iraq War had just begun, so I snickered and said, of course not. The boyfriend turned to his girlfriend with a smug, victorious look and said, see, I told you he was German. If you're not Russian, you're obviously German. I don't see how they got that wrong. I've posted this before on Reddit at some point, but it's perfect for this question. My college assigns emails with your first initial, middle initial, then last name. So my email ended up being Dr. Last Name at college, as my first and middle initials are D and R. I jokingly told two dudes that I was with and how people I email think I'm a doctorate. One of them got up to go to the bathroom, and the other one was real quiet for a few seconds and then said, so did you work for the school over the summer? How did you become a doctor? It was the first week of freshman year, and I was 18. I had one quirky professor who would refer to all of his students as Doctor, their last name, in class. After that semester ended, I kept running into former classmates while hanging out with friends, and they would always call me Doctor, my last name. I also worked on campus as a tutor, so while out drinking with friends, I would hear some guy yelling, Dr. OP, hey! And my friends would say, wait, you have a PhD? And I would say, no, it's just some crazy guy. Then the guy would come up to me and say how much I helped him learn math and how I'm an awesome teacher. After he left, my friends were convinced that I was a math teacher with a PhD, and for some reason I was lying about it. This was reinforced each time we saw another one of my classmates, and they'd do the same thing. Hey now, superheroes aren't the only people that need secret identities. Teachers need them nowadays too. My mom worked at a credit union and had a member ask if she could deposit cash through the mobile deposit. My old roommate when choosing from a bowl of candy. I've decided I'm gonna go with Starburst instead of Twix because the fruit is healthier than chocolate. She was dead serious. Here in the UK, we got a lot of American kids shows, especially big ones like SpongeBob, Animaniacs, etc. These shows normally have the 4th of July special about the Declaration and War of Independence. With that as a topic of conversation, this is the genuine discussion I had with someone when I was 14. Me. The Simpsons made a joke about that during episode of 4th of July I forgot the name of. Friend. Yeah, I watched that one. The British sound like jerks. Me, slow blinking. Come again? You know, the British. The guys they always talk about when they do those kind of specials. I bet we could take them. Me again. Daniel, what country do we live in? Friend. England? Cue very quick explanation of British geography, with Daniel refusing to believe he was British until he went home and asked his mum. You should get off your tablet while it's storming. Lightning could travel through the Wi-Fi and shock you. My mother. I was once making small talk with an acquaintance, and I told her that I had flown out to visit my family in Korea over the summer. She got this smug grin on her face and said, "You can't fly to Korea, it's an island." My son was born on February 29th. Woman asked me if he needed to have 5 actual birthdays before starting kindergarten, or if he could still go when he was 5 years old. My friend said this once, "I don't worry about the price of gas going up. I only ever put $20 in at a time." Evolution isn't real. We just hatched out of eggs one day. A girl at my school. I used to work at a call center for a wireless service provider. A woman called in inquiring about how much we charged to use her phone while she was traveling internationally. I said it depends on the country and asked where she was headed. As serious as can be, she responds with, "Wyoming." I barely got to my mute button before I erupted in laughter. And in case you're curious, I did not mishear her, nor was she calling from outside the US. I clarified with her. She legitimately thought Wyoming was a different country. Plus, if you could hear how she talked and stuff, you literally wouldn't even give her the benefit of the doubt. When I was in China, some guy asked me if I wanted to learn English. I told him that I live in Canada, so I already know English. He was curious why I spoke English in Canada instead of Canadaese. About a year ago, dude flipped open his flip phone during the daytime and started taking a picture of the moon that was clearly visible. We lock eyes before he snaps the photo and he says to me, "This happens only once every hundreds of years." I just kept walking. One night I was working at T-Bell. This girl comes through the drive-thru absolutely hammered. She was destroyed. She kept yelling at us to give her French fries. I just kept telling her that we don't sell French fries. Finally, my manager comes over and gives her the side of Fiesta potatoes and says these are Mexican French fries. I almost cried laughing so hard. And in case you're curious, yes, we did report her for driving wasted. Sometimes it depends on the manager working, but we usually report all wasted drivers at Taco Bell. I hate to be that guy, but Taco Bell does actually serve French fries. It's those nacho fries or whatever they're called. I was giving tours at my college geology museum. An older woman asked me to show her around. I was showing her our best showpieces when we got to this large quartz crystal. She then proceeds to ooh and ah and showed me that one of the facets of the peak had 7 edges. She then tells me that she could channel spirits through the crystal's facet and began speaking in tongues. I walked away and asked if anyone else would like a tour. In middle school, took a road trip with my best friend and her parents from the Midwest to Disney World in Florida. They had family in Georgia, so we stopped for a visit on our way through. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to enter their trailer because I was a northerner. They were eventually convinced to let me in when I told them that I was born in New Mexico, which wasn't a state during the Civil War, so therefore, I was technically not a northerner. It blows my mind that there are still people like this in America. While driving, I see windmills across the hilltops and point them out. My girlfriend, "Oh, cool! Why did they need to make wind though?" She's a special one. That's it for this video. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. It's linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching and we'll see you guys next time.
Reddit, what's the most messed up food your parents would make regularly when you were a kid? Get ready for a lot of cursed things in this post. My mom would mix cooked mac and cheese with applesauce in a bowl and give it to us. My mom was from the quote, boil the ever-loving crap out of everything school of cooking. Carrots boiled to sad orangish lumps, broccoli steamed beyond any recognition. Corn may have started fresh, but by the time she was done with it, it resembled creamed corn but lacking any possible flavor or texture. Barbecue chicken? Boil that son of a gun completely before you blacken it on the grill, lest you and everyone you love die horrifically from salmonella. The things she would do to a steak are crimes against humanity. Combine all this with an 80s desire to avoid salt at all costs, and my dad's pathological fear of bad breath resulting in a blanket household ban on onions and garlic. And mealtime was a grayish, disappointing place. I now take cooking very seriously. When they were younger, my grandma and her siblings were forced to eat cream of mushroom soup sandwiches. Her dad would slice the soup like cranberry sauce and spread it across the bread. The thing is, listener, This is an example of two great things that don't go together. Cream of mushroom soup? My mom uses it to make tater tot casserole. It's very good. Adds a lot of richness, savoriness, and creaminess. Sandwiches? Can't go wrong with them. They're one of my favorite things to make. But a cream of mushroom soup sandwich? Are y'all out here drinking your sandwiches? My mom liked to make spaghetti. That's not weird, I hear you say. Let me mention that she made it with raisins. I already don't like this post, but we're gonna keep going. Like, get a pot of water boiling, throw in the noodles and some raisins at the same time. No spaghetti sauce afterward, just cooked spaghetti and rehydrated raisins on a plate. She was very proud of this dish, and she didn't understand why we hated Mom's day to cook. Edit. Guys, I know a raisin is a dehydrated grape, but rehydrating it doesn't just turn it back into a grape. It turns it into some disgusting raisin juice bomb, which is even worse when warm. I'm really trying hard to understand the thought process that leads to a person deciding to cook spaghetti with raisins, but I'm drawing a blank. So bear with me on this, but I have an explanation. Not a justification, but an explanation. On the island of Sicily, one of the regions of Italy, some meat dishes actually include raisins or golden raisins. For example, braciole. That's Braciole. It's a meat dish that's a roulade, which is a rolled and stuffed meat that contains stuff like cheese, herbs, and breadcrumbs. I've never had raisins with meat before, but if Italy is doing it, home of the best pizza and pasta in all of the world, I have no reason to judge them. Quote, asparagus salad, which consisted of 5 to 6 limp, cold pieces of canned asparagus served on a bed of iceberg lettuce with a glob of mayo on top. Yeah, there's no bearing with me on this one. This is just white people food. We were beyond poor, so many of my mother's creations were simply a matter of making do with what we had. That didn't make them any more palatable, though. The two most memorable: canned peas cooked in powdered milk and served over toast. She called it, quote, pea wiggle. We had it at least once a month. Canned spaghetti sauce and a slice of surplus cheese placed on a slice of bread and toasted in the oven. This was, quote, poor man's pizza. I actually loved this as a kid. Tried it again a few years ago and was less impressed. Not everything can be credited to a lack of money. She used to slice up kielbasa and steam it. The result was very much like styrofoam chips. This is a great time to mention the YouTube channel The Wolf Pit, the WOLFE Pit, all one word. It focuses on cooking on a really tight budget, so I highly recommend it if you're looking to eat cheap without having asparagus salad. My dad got into a phase of watching Emeril Lagasse, and it inspired him to try and be fancy. I'll never forget. He made these hamburger patties and put chunks of bread mixed in with the raw meat, but the bread just absorbed all the blood. They looked like huge, mushy, bloody warts hanging off the meat. It was absolutely repulsive looking. Okay, after reading that nightmare sentence, let me tell you why you should put bread in your meatballs. If you take some day-old bread, tear it up into chunks, and soak them in milk or preferably heavy cream, maybe throw in some seasonings into it, that's called a panade. When mixed into your meatballs, it actually helps retain moisture and prevents dry, sad meatballs. But don't just stick plain white bread into your burgers, that's just not going to work out well for anybody. My mom used to make a Vietnamese noodle dish called bun dieu, but didn't always have time to make it from scratch, so she often used a canned broth. I am allergic to peanuts, and every time she made this dish, I would complain to her that I didn't want to eat anymore because my lips were swelling up and I was itchy. She is having none of that sass, obviously, and makes me eat the whole bowl. Few years down the line, she decides to read the ingredients label on the back and just says, you should probably stop eating that. As was the custom in the 1950s to the 1980s, when my parents were coming of age, my parents only ate vegetables boiled and unseasoned. So, boiled carrots, boiled Brussels sprouts, etc. No salt, no pepper, no olive oil or butter. This led me to believe that vegetables are supposed to taste bad. Later in life, I discovered seared, roasted, caramelized, and seasoned vegetables, and those things are the bomb. Every day, I'm caramelizing or roasting a veggie. Mom would make frozen whitefish, baked in an oven until it was overcooked and just dehydrated, shrunken fillets of white fish. Then, she'd serve it with boiled cauliflower and white rice. White entree, white starch, white vegetable, all served on a white plate. What did we drink? Yeah, milk. White milk. My mom made, and still makes, a dish called cat heads. It's basically chicken with cream of celery, some vegetables, and a bit of stew inside 2 rolled up crescent rolls. It looks exactly like a shaved, cooked cat's head, so she called it that and we have it every Christmas. This comment actually says, so basically mini chicken pot pies but shaped like cat heads? I would eat that, and I gotta say, I agree with that. I freaking demolish chicken pot pie every time I have it. They would wrap bologna around a banana, and that was my snack. I don't know where the idea came from. I freaking hated it. I just don't know, guys. I grew up to become allergic to bananas. My grandma made leftovers casserole while my mom was growing up. You take a bunch of cooked noodles, whatever leftovers seem appropriate, add a can of cream of something soup, throw a topping on it, and bake it till it's food. My mother hated it. She called it one-pot glop. Grandma made it at least once every time we visited, and I loved it. Once when I saw her cooking it, I cheered, "Yay, one-pot glop!" The look of betrayal on Grandma's face was very confusing. I made one-pot glop for breakfast this morning. Overcooked steak. Like leather tier overcooked. Grew up on a dairy farm, so beef was plentiful. But if we didn't choke down the shoe leather dinner, my mother would have a violent meltdown about how we were all ungrateful little jerks. My mom, God bless her, was not a very talented cook. She tried, but she just wasn't interested and didn't have the knack. At least I got a home-cooked meal most nights, so I can't complain. Mom used to buy these awful Polish sausages. She would take a few and throw them in a pot of water with a head of cabbage. Let everything boil for a while, and that was dinner. Mom called it, quote, bratwurst. I lived in fear of quote-unquote bratwurst my whole life until I was in college. There was a German festival and all of my friends were like, oh boy, let's go get some brats. I thought they were crazy. Then someone handed me a real brat on a bun with spicy mustard and sauerkraut, and I realized that I had been all wrong about the true nature of bratwurst. That was probably the best thing I learned in college. A dry ketchup sandwich. It was old stale bread that was broken in half for the 2 pieces of bread for a sandwich with ketchup in between them. No meat, no cheese, just ketchup. If we were lucky, the bread wasn't too stale and the taste kinda resembled French fries. This one just makes me sad. Like, not even in a pity way or a, oh, I can't believe that she would do that, she's so disgusting. This just sounds like a depression meal or a meal you would make if you were like in the negatives in your bank account. My mom loved making pork chops, but she cooked the heck out of them, so it was like eating rubber. We ended up calling the dinner Shake and Incinerate. My grandfather used to buy tubs of fish eyes and he would put them in all kinds of things. My scrambled eggs used to stare up at me. Not something they made regularly, made once, reheated leftovers for ages, but we ate it a lot for a while. My mom made what we came to call, quote, pepper soup. It initially was an accident. She was making a small batch of soup for dinner, and while shaking some black pepper in, the lid fell off and the entire container of pepper emptied itself into the soup. She scooped out what she could, but in the end, it was still way too peppery to eat. Ended up enlarging the batch of soup into 2 large canning pots, each about 5 gallons, before it was at a tolerable level. Us kids still found it way too peppery. Anyways, we ate that soup what seemed like every day for a couple months. We grew up dirt poor and relied heavily on the area's soup kitchens and food pantries. There were 5 of us kids with a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was unemployed for a few years, so we rarely could afford basic things like fruit. To keep us healthy, my dad would regularly fill an empty skim milk jug with water and add powdered milk plus powdered vitamin tablets, the type with the capsule, and shake it up, then put it in the fridge. We never really knew whether we were drinking actual milk or the vile false milk until we tasted it, since skim milk has the same appearance. To this day, my dad maintains that doing what he did kept us all healthy as none of us got sick during his unemployment. I mean, geez, you gotta do what you gotta do. Props to that, Dad. My stepdad and mom used to make, quote, grilled cheese for lunch every weekend. Now, that's not so bad, right? Wrong. Bread with the knockoff Kraft processed cheese, microwaved for 2 to 5 minutes. No butter, no toast. Just soggy bread and burnt plastic cheese, if only in for 2 minutes. If it was cooked for 5 minutes, the bread would be rock hard and molten plastic. My parents have become great cooks now, but when my sister and I were kids, she was a total brat and a picky eater, so we'd wind up with plain, unseasoned chicken breasts and steamed broccoli and plain white rice way too often. And I wasn't allowed to put salt on it because salt was bad for me. And I guess it didn't occur to them to provide any condiment or something to give that crap some flavor. Okay, this isn't the first time I've heard of people's parents thinking salt is toxic, but one of my cousins is about the same age as my mom, and she is a salt fiend. We were at a Mexican restaurant one time, and she was shaking salt onto every single nacho she ate. She couldn't get enough. She wanted to be one with the salt. I swear if she ingested any more salt, she would have become a CSGO player mixed with a League of Legends streamer. I genuinely worry about the life expectancy of this woman. My mother makes this thing me and my brother can only refer to as compost salad. It starts on a skillet where she scrambles some eggs. Then, she adds 3 cups of kale and steams it, oftentimes burning the eggs in the process and releasing a vaguely fart-like scent into the atmosphere. Then, things get weird. She adds an entire can of kidney beans, bean water and all, mashing them into the eggy kale. She then adds cinnamon, nutmeg, curry powder, garlic powder, and salsa and Tabasco sauce. At this point, the smell is so nauseating it's nearly impossible to be in the same room as this abomination of a dish. After it's done being heated into mush, she puts it on a plate and adds vanilla yogurt on top. Looks like it was fished straight out of the trash. Needless to say, I refuse to let her make me food. And by the way, I really have no idea what's wrong with her, but something is definitely up if she thinks that this is an acceptable meal. Let me preface this by saying that my mother is in no way Hispanic. She is one of the whitest people I know. She grew up mainly in Central Florida and the Upper Midwest, rarely if at all coming into contact with Latin American culture except at the occasional restaurant. Despite this, she would routinely make, quote, arroz con pollo for dinner. This consisted of chicken, cooked until it was tough and chewy to ensure it was, quote, cooked through, and rolled in flavorless breadcrumbs from a can, served with a side of mealy, aggressively under-seasoned rice. Did I mention that there was almost no salt in any of this because salt was, quote, unhealthy? It was so unpleasant that I threw it right back up a few times, once even at the table. Somehow, she still wonders why I barely eat anything when I'm home for Thanksgiving. It amazes me how many of these posts mention a lack of salt. Your body needs salt. We specifically used iodized salt because a lack of iodine is one of the leading causes of preventable developmental problems in children. Pork in cider sauce. The cider in question was cheap as dirt White Lightning, the only time we actually bought it, I like to point out, and me and my sister hated it. We don't want this. Can we have something else? You ate it last time, so you must like it, so be quiet and eat it. We really don't like it. Tough. You'll eat what you're given or go hungry. My mom was awesome as we were growing up, and in all fairness, we did eat most of the things that we were given anyway, as she was a fantastic cook. But this was an abomination, beaten only by liver and onions. She stopped making it when I went to school hungry. I'd gotten up too late to eat breakfast, and the school phoned her up to express their concern and make sure there was nothing happening at home. As an American reading this, it grossed me out thinking of cooking pork in White Lightning. In America, that is usually home-distilled alcohol or moonshine. However, in the South, pork barbecue usually has a vinegar, cider-based sauce on it, and it's super tasty, so I could see where your mom was going with this. Yeah, but the only thing that was missing was the rest of the sauce. My grandma is an awful cook. She hates doing it, and you can definitely tell by the stuff she comes up with. Here's a few examples. Instant mashed potatoes with mayonnaise. Gag. Quote, peach cobbler, which was flour, peaches, and syrup. Fried chicken cooked long enough to burn it completely. Salt was the only seasoning she ever used. Spaghetti. No flavor. Just ground beef, never drained by the way, generic pasta sauce, and noodles. She got mad when I started using barbecue sauce to mask the nasty crap she made. Man, I put it in mashed potatoes, macaroni, rice, and meat. My mom was/is seriously the worst cook. The only time I ever ate anything good was when we had weekends with my dad and he took us to restaurants and let us order whatever we wanted. For a kid, I could eat a heck of a lot of lobster. My mom made these disgusting casseroles with fried Spam, Velveeta mac, and canned peas. Then it was topped off with those Kraft single slices and crushed up barbecue potato chips. She thought that was the ultimate in cooking. I still feel sick when I think about it. Sometimes for dinner, we would have chipped beef on toast, which is a disgusting, salty, Great Depression kind of food. And if it wasn't chipped beef, it was some kind of soup/tuna mixture over toast. If it came in a can, we probably ate it. This is probably why I taught myself how to cook. I went back home to visit last year, and I cooked dinner every night because I saw my mom pulling out the Spam and Velveeta, and there was no way I was going to let that happen. My dad didn't want me to leave after the 4th salted caramel apple pie I made. Not my parents, but growing up, I loved my grandmother's cooking. In retrospect, some of it was kind of weird. Her parents emigrated from Japan to Hawaii shortly after the turn of the century, and she'd have been about 7 when the Great Depression started. Combine that with World War II and frequent shipping issues, and she wound up with a lot of unusual culinary habits. Little Japanese lady, maybe 4'9" and 80 pounds on a good day, making spaghetti and adding corn. Her meatloaf had canned clams in it. I really love that one. Vienna sausages and Spam stewed in a sweet soy sauce broth, raw broccoli and sliced kamaboko fish cake sandwiches with lettuce, cucumber, and mayo, also pretty good actually. Cubes of raw tofu tossed with canned tuna, soy sauce, onions, and some other things. Growing up in Hawaii, I didn't think anything of it. If seaweed and raw fish are part of the regular menu, none of that stuff's any weirder. Anyway, she made all of that stuff for her family, plus more traditional items like maki sushi, mochiko chicken, and other delicious things. For herself though, she'd maybe have a few cubes of tofu, a bowl of miso soup, and some rice. She loved dessert and sweets, but even then, she'd take a piece of chocolate and cut it into fourths. I last saw her in 2010, when she must have been about 88. She had her good days and her bad days, but she didn't cook anymore. She passed away in 2014. I miss her. I'm gonna get gushy for a bit. I think this is one of the greatest things about cooking and food in general. Taste is one of the most powerful senses we have because it's the most intimate. Think about it, you're putting something inside your body that's going to end up everywhere else inside your body. When you eat something, you remember how it tastes. You have a vast memory of tastes, and those tastes remind you of memories. You ever hear the phrase, just like grandma used to make? That's because if you grew up on grandma's cooking, you have that, for lack of a better term, flavor connection. It's why some people cry when they have certain foods. It reminds them of home, or a loved one, or a precious memory. It's like that scene in Ratatouille when Ego has that dish Remy makes. It's not that it's made perfectly. It's made lovingly. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. What is your best met the high school jerk/bully as an adult story? I own my own gym and have for a few years now. I received a message one day from a familiar-looking name on the business's Facebook page from a woman asking to come try us out. We set it up, she comes in for an introduction. She's a very, very large and out-of-shape woman at this point. After about 5 minutes of working with her, it hits me that this lady used to be about half her current size and was an absolute bee back in her heyday. I decided not to bring it up to her as she appeared to be struggling in life and came to us in a time of need, and I took it, as I do with all of my clients, as a cry for help. Not to mention, I'm a grown man now, and that seemed pretty silly and insignificant in life today. Months later, during one of the classes, I noticed her struggling real hard, so I go over to offer some encouragement. As I lean down to say something to her, I notice she's crying faintly to herself. She looks up at me and quietly says, "Sorry for how nasty I was to you years ago, and thank you for doing this for me." Turns out an old mutual friend told her about my place and she recognized me as the owner and came to me on purpose. No, not a story of revenge or retribution, but she reached out to someone she was terrible to, and today, she's repurposed, and I find it to be quite inspiring. Not quite the same, but about 10 years ago, I caught my dad screaming at the TV. "This friggin' jerk got his own show! He was such a piece of crap when we were kids. He would beat you up for your lunch money, push you for no good reason, take your toys, and based on the way he acts now, it doesn't seem like he grew up much." He was talking about Paul Toodles Sr. from American Choppers. We met at a bar where a large number of our high school class happened to be. He described me as his arch enemy. I realized I hadn't even thought about him in 10 years. She got the whole middle school through junior high to call me gay. I was not gay. She is. She came out of the closet right after high school. I was a jerk in high school. Then I went through the karma-mandated fat phase. Made a guy's day when he saw me at work. I went from pretty dang fine in high school to man the harpoons. I'm also nicer. He came in and said, "Wow, the fanciful unicorn?" And I said, "Yep, does this make it feel better?" and spread out my arms. He responded, "Heck yeah, you were a jerk." I said sorry. I was pretty immature. And then we talked like normal adults. Moved to a new school in 7th grade and was doing fine. Making friends, good grades. Then somehow ran afoul of this bigger kid. He'd been held back a few times. Typical bully, pushed little kids into lockers, loved to torment girls, and ran with a pack of acolytes who adored and aped him. In Texas at the time, if a kid didn't like you, he, quote, called you out, challenged you to a fight after school. Well, Zed calls me out one day because I was a, quote, queer from New York. Clueless me, moved there from said New York where people are civilized, I said, sure, okay. A few days later, in front of his acolytes and a small group of my friends, he proceeds to beat the crap out of me. It was 7th grade, so the damage wasn't excessive, mostly to my pride. Spent the rest of middle school known as one of the guys Zed beat the crap out of. Fast forward about 7 years, home from college and going to the grocery store for mom. Who should I see bagging my goodies but Zed? Taking a look at him, I see a horrible scar running from the top of his head down around the back of his skull and neck and under his shirt. His face lights up when he sees me, and he says, in slightly slurred speech, "Hey, didn't we go to school together? We're friends from school, right?" He walks with me out to the parking lot, and as we walk, I learn that he had been hit by a car in high school while biking home one day. Accident required a half dozen surgeries, and it left Zed mentally impaired and a completely different person. He put my stuff in the car, shook my hand for a good 30 seconds, and kept asking me to, quote, come back and see me sometime. I had hated few people in my life to that point, and no one more than him. Almost cried driving home. I felt so bad for him and disgusted with myself for my previous hatred. I ran into somebody in high school that I used to pick on regularly when we were in 1st or 2nd grade. We recognized each other, and I walked up to him. We exchanged a few words, since I hadn't seen him in close to 10 years, and then didn't talk again. But right before we parted ways, I apologized for the way I treated him as a child. I couldn't stress how sorry I was for being a piece of crap to him for no other reason than I felt like it. I still occasionally think about him and where he's at in life. I work in a jail. I've seen the, quote, popular kids on the other side of the bars. I ran into my high school bully at a gay bar a few years back. He was my bottom that night. One of mine was this kid named Patrick. One incident led to 2 of my ribs being broken when he jumped on my chest with his knees. Another resulted in a broken eye socket after being kicked in the face by him and 2 of his friends. Eventually, I moved in with my father and didn't see any of my old bullies again, except for a few. Some have been relatively nice, and some are jerks. During high school, I took some martial arts classes, Taekwondo. I was always a larger kid, but too timid to fight back, but martial arts helped me to overcome that. Fast forward to a year or 2 after high school, and I go over to visit my mother. She had moved in with a real jerk who was into God knows what. And guess who's there? Patrick. He's now almost a foot shorter than me, skinny as a middle school girl, and was undoubtedly on meth. I later found out he also did heroin and a myriad of other drugs. We end up talking, and I tell him about how I have sinus trouble because of the beating I got from him and his friends. He laughed. I looked around at my younger brother, who had got very skinny from not eating, and sister, the environment they were in, and right then I made a decision. I turned to my mother and said, "I don't give a crap if this is the kind of people you want to be around," indicating the piece of crap next to me, but we are leaving. So I piled my siblings in my car and brought them home with me. They shortly moved in with my father officially and have been much better off since. Patrick made a comment about me, quote, disrespecting him and my mother, and I told him he had no respect for himself, obviously, so who is he to talk like that? He went to hit me and I just stared at him. He dropped his fist quick after I stared him down for what felt like an hour. TLDR, met middle school bully, he's a meth head, was living with my mother, took my siblings and left after verbally sparring with him. Feels good, man. Edit. Wow, this got a lot more karma than I thought. Didn't have time to write this up earlier, but to clear a few things up, he didn't bang my mother. I don't think. He was basically just there all the time like drug addicts are wont to do. My mother was living, and screwing, her boyfriend at the time, whose house it actually was. And the thought of snapping him like a twig did occur to me, but that paled in comparison to what he was doing to himself. If he didn't clean his ways up by now, he's likely dead or in prison. Beating the crap out of him wouldn't have made me feel any better. Plus, it's a lot easier on the knuckles. When I was a kid, I was fat. I used to get picked on all the time by this kid at church named Rusty. He was about 5 years older than me, and every couple of weeks, he would beat me up. I moved away when I was about 14, and thankfully, I didn't have to deal with him anymore. When I went to college, I decided to get my act together and get healthy. To that end, I started taking mixed martial arts. I did it for about 2 years and lost about 40 pounds. When I graduated, I moved back to where I was from and started looking for a new MMA gym. I went to the most reputable one, and who should be there but Rusty? It sounds too good to be true, but I swear to God it happened. He hadn't changed a bit. The first thing he said to me was, "Finally trying to learn to defend yourself, huh?" I had called ahead, and the instructor knew my deal and had arranged for me to come watch. I left my gear in the car. At the end of class, they do free rolling, jiu-jitsu sparring. Rusty comes up to me, having no knowledge that I am the least bit experienced, and starts begging the instructor to let him spar me, so he can, quote, show me the ropes. After all, he's been in MMA for 3 months now, and he never misses a UFC pay-per-view. I went outside and changed. Long story short, we sparred and I choked him out 3 times. Afterwards, I signed up for classes, he grabbed his bag, left, and never came back. This is my favorite story out of everything that has happened in my life thus far. I'm the only person I know that got to beat up my childhood bully as an adult. I was in need for an accountant job, so I searched several websites of businesses. I came across a very worthy company, so I wanted to apply. While I was filling out the form, I looked around the website some more and saw the name of the head chief of the company. I was depressed for the rest of the day. My high school bully who bullied me every day is now the head chief of his own freaking business. I'm an accountant. It doesn't always work out. This one is a classic. This girl used to torment me all through high school and middle school, really went out of her way to tear me down. Whenever we had a class together, she would make her extreme dislike for me apparent, and, of course, other kids followed. I couldn't open my mouth without some kind of ridicule. Of course I was miserable, and my dad would try to cheer me up. Don't worry, kiddo. One day, she'll be working at a McDonald's and serving you fries. He actually referred to her as McDonald's for years. A couple years after graduating high school, I went to a Hardee's with my dad, and there was McDonald's behind the counter. I go up to place my order, and before I finish, she says, "You don't remember me, do you?" "Oh, I remember you." "Oh, so, would you like fries with that?" "Why, yes. Yes, I would." Way to go, Dad. Called it 9 years in advance. I had an evil 5th grade teacher who made my life terrible for a year. She even instigated a, quote, pick on Stoops day. I saw her at the bar where my friend worked. The day before this, we had invented a shot that tastes like urinal cake smell, Captain Morgan's Lime Bite mixed with Miller High Life. I bought my old teacher and her friends around from across the bar. I made eye contact and raised my shot of Wild Turkey. They gave me a curious look, but took the urinal cake shots nonetheless. My old teacher proceeded to throw up on the bar and get 86'd from one of the only bars in town. Screw you, Mrs. Freeman. My sister has since become really good friends with her childhood tormentors. The sad part to me is that the reason she was able to patch things up was that she was a very late bloomer and ended up the kind of popular person they wanted to be friends with. I guess she kind of sold out and became friends with them. How on earth the topic never comes up amongst them, I do not know. Maybe it's her long-term plan to enact revenge, gain trust, destroy them, preferably by dumping pig's blood on their heads at a formal event of some kind. My dad is a very large man. We're talking 6'7", 300 pounds big. He would always tell me this story to cheer me up when girls would be jerks to me. He was pretty chubby in high school, so he played football and was good at it, but just really loved playing basketball. So his freshman year, he tried out for the team and didn't make it. The coach, who was a history teacher at the school, stated his weight as an issue. Fair enough. He worked hard to lose some weight over the summer, blah blah blah. Enter sophomore year. Ends up having the coach as his history teacher. Great, he thinks. He could be a good student and hopefully get on the team. Wrong. This adult man decided to call my father names related to his weight and harass him in front of the class. Not cool, but my dad was too proud and never said anything. Ended up making varsity his sophomore year because of a coaching change. Fast forward about 5 years. My dad was working as a bouncer at a bar in a nearby town to where he went to school. It was a regular night when who walks in? Jerk history teacher. Perfect. He thinks, I'll let it go, be professional, until he recognizes my dad as, quote, the chubby kid who was a coward. My dad looks at him and says, Sir, I think you've had too much to drink. It's time for you to go home. The coach is saying, No, I'm fine, etc., etc. My dad grabs him by the shirt and says, No, it's time for you to step outside. You've had too much to drink. The coach decides to swing at my dad, and that's when he loses it. He states, This is for all the kids you called fat, you piece of crap, and proceeds to beat the tar out of him. A long story, I know, but my favorite by far. My dad and his old bouncer friends always tell it when they got together, too. Ah, revenge. Content warning, this one's pretty violent. My dad did something similar. He grew up as a poorish farm boy in Ireland. All he ever wanted to do was sing in the church Christmas Day show. He bought himself a guitar and taught himself to play, but his headmaster at school wouldn't let him, or any of the family for that matter, perform in it. Fast forward about 30 years, we are back in Ireland for my grandfather's funeral, and we walk into my cousin's pub, and sitting at the bar is this old man. I had never seen my dad so angry before in my life. His face was purple with anger at the sight of this guy. He decked this old man so hard he knocked him off his bar stool and onto his back. My dad crouched down inches from his face and said, Get out before I punch you for every boy you laid eyes on. This old man looked like he was going to crap himself and ran out of there as fast as he could. I was mortified and felt awful for this old man until my dad told me what this man was doing. He was touching the boys from school. He would take his picks and basically cycle through them as he saw fit. The boys not being touched didn't get away easy either. They were hit with a shillelagh until they bled. My dad hated this man and says that had he found him when he was a drinking man, he may have killed him. TLDR, my dad decked an old man for kitty diddling his friends. This is kind of morbid. In the 6th grade, I was friends with this kid. I remember one day telling him about an episode of Rescue 911 that I saw, where a guy was driving an ATV in a field and didn't see that there was a barbed wire. Fast forward a year, and this kid started to make really mean comments about me. He would make fun of my appearance and how my family had no money in front of everyone. I'm from an immigrant family, and he would always tell me to go back to my country. Middle school was really tough on me because of kids like him, but held back from fighting him because I knew nothing good would come from it. Fast forward to the summer after high school graduation, that kid was driving an ATV in a field, didn't see the barbed wire, and was decapitated. Weird that 7 years prior, I had described to my future tormentor exactly how he will die. I've got 2. I was picked on a lot. About 10 years ago, I got a temporary job at Kroger. It was just stocking shelves, and I had another restaurant job lined up, but needed something for about 2 months while I went through a lengthy hiring process there. Spoiler, I wound up getting an even better job elsewhere and wound up never taking that. So, I go to get my check on my first payday at Kroger and find out the manager at the front is one of the guys who used to bully the crap out of me in high school. He made small talk for a minute. Hey, how you been? Good to see you. He clearly remembered. Once everyone walked away, he leaned in and said, "Hey, Deprecated Zero, I'm really sorry for all the crap I did to you in school. I was a stupid jerk kid." I smiled, held out my hand, thanked him, and told him it's all in the past. That was really cool. The other is less cool but hilarious to me. This girl was, quote, the prom queen, basically. The stereotypical mean girl dating the football player. My opinion of her was always that she was just spoiled, worthless, and dumb. I don't usually take joy in other people's misfortune, but I felt schadenfreude in unparalleled amounts the day I walked into Buffalo Wild Wings and saw her standing behind the counter. This is maybe 10 years out of high school. She looks exactly the same. Put on some weight maybe, but hair still done the same. She still looks like she got Effie Trinket to do her makeup, so on. You could tell at a glance that she's never mentally moved past 8th grade. I asked how she'd been, tried to politely talk to her because, hey, I want people to do well. She was a jerk. Was like, "Ew, you're Deprecated Zero." I just raised my eyebrows at her and let it go. Long story short, her boss was my roommate. I asked him about her. Single mother, just got kicked out of her mom's house. He just hired her like 2 weeks earlier. He confronted her about talking down to customers and wound up firing her. Felt like justice. I lucked out and didn't really garner any enemies while in middle school and high school. Mostly because I was the poor kid at a snobby private school in Nashville, Tennessee, until I moved in 9th grade and nobody would talk to me. There was this one really obnoxious boy in one of my classes in 7th grade though. Treated everyone like handmaids, but the parents had money, so nothing was ever really done about it. Ran across his Facebook page the other day. His parents just bought him his second Lamborghini because he wrecked the first one. I try not to hold animosity towards anyone, but I hope somebody keys his car. I was working in a video rental store in Houston, circa 1989, about 2 years after I graduated high school. In comes a girl that had always been awful to me from 10th grade to graduation. She would cross a room just to say something mean, and I had no history with this girl at all. I had never actually said a word to her. All our exchanges were just her saying something mean to me. I didn't even know her last name. I must have reminded her of someone. She comes into the store and sheepishly said that she wanted 3 dirty movies. She didn't seem to remember me. She said her best friend was getting married and she wanted some dirty movies for the bachelorette party. The shop had a small adult room that you had to access by coming behind the counter, but she didn't want to go in there. She asked me to select 3 films. She was squirming with embarrassment as I tried to find out what she was, quote, into, and kind of acted like I thought the films were for her and her alone. She said, "Just grab 3 good ones, I don't care." So I selected 3, all lesbian adult films, and she slunk out with them. I would have loved to see the look on their faces when they popped those tapes in. She returned them through the night drop so she wouldn't have to look anyone in the eye when she brought them back. She rented on her parents' account. I sent a notice through the mail to her parents that, quote, Mona's 3-way slit party had been returned damaged and they owed us $30. Met a kid that was an absolute brute in high school. Thought he was tough stuff. I think I only went face to face with him once over some dumb crap about him threatening a friend of mine. No real fight ever came from it, but he was definitely an enemy. Met him randomly in an airport halfway across the country maybe 4 years after high school. He was the nicest guy. The Marines beat the stupid right out of him. I was playing poker in Atlantic City about 7 years ago, and one of the guys that bullied me, Chad, sat at my table. There's no way he recognized me. I was actually playing on a no-limit hold'em table while waiting for a seat to open in a 2-way high-low game. Anyway, I stayed at the NLHE table just to take his money. I played probably 95% of the pots he was in. He was pretty drunk and wasn't very good. I got close to $600 off of him in a little over an hour before he decided to quit. I have no idea what he does for a living, but I am 100% sure he is a big loser when he plays cards. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
What is something that happened at a sleepover which you'll never forget? My friend got an inappropriate text from his mom that was meant for her boyfriend. It specifically said the boyfriend's name in it, so I'm certain it wasn't anything weird. The look on his face and the graphic detail in the text was the funniest freaking thing I've ever witnessed. I couldn't fall asleep because I was laughing for hours. It's always fun to get those types of texts from people, but never when it's your mom. I feel bad for this person. We were all around 8 to 10 years old, and it's about 11 p.m. after spending all day with the birthday boy's aunt, his legal guardian. We were watching Wild Wild West when out of nowhere, one of the boys says to my friend's aunt, "You have great knockers." She said thank you, and we all continued watching the movie. That kid went on to be a Giga Chad. First time I ever saw spicy content was at a sleepover, and it totally blew my mind. I had no idea that there was a whole world of spicy possibilities beyond awkwardly touching my pillow. Hey now, the anime body pillow business is booming. This may have happened to a friend of mine. I was the first one in the group to get a computer in our bedrooms. I became, an expert in surfing the internet. Well, one night, Chris came over and I showed him LimeWire. To this day, he swears he went to bed, but when I went to sleep, he was watching, and when I woke up, he was watching. With his bloodshot eyes, he left my house, not as a boy, but as a man. A man who probably spanked the monkey on my computer chair. Gross. LimeWire, the website where you always downloaded the wrong version of the show you wanted. When I was about 7 years old, my friend and I stayed up pretty late watching TV. We came across some weird infomercial channel that was advertising body paint. All of a sudden, unclothed women pop up on the screen and these men started rubbing green paint all over their bodies. It then cut to an unclothed man that was wrapped in a plastic blanket that had the air sucked out of it. The women threw themselves on top of him and started rubbing their bodies on him. I got so paranoid that my friend's mom would walk in from the next room, but my friend was so intrigued by whatever the hell was that, and she dismissed all my pleas. I still have no idea what the heck we were watching. You were watching Real Hooking Up on HBO. That was the episode about people that like latex. Dude, watching something on late night HBO was my first experience too. I just remember it being a hot Asian woman and I was like, wow! I was around 7 years old. I had a rich friend named Kevin who could afford all sorts of cool toys because his dad imported and exported them, along with a bunch of other goods. During one sleepover, he brought over one of these remote control fart boxes. Instead of playing with it, we hatched a master plan to sneak it under my parents' bed and unleash its power when they were going to bed. We waited for hours. Finally, when the clock struck midnight, we let it loose. God damn it, Alan, my mother said. But it wasn't over. We didn't spam it. We waited for them to settle and let it go again and again. Finally, we couldn't take it anymore. My parents had us cracking up, and my dad, as boisterous with his cologne as he is, realized it wasn't his butt. I used to be best friends with a popular girl at school, and our group of friends had sleepovers all the time. One night when we were 12 years old, I woke up all wet and she convinced me that it was really hot and we had just sweated all night. Then I started to think about the plastic cover on her bed and the frequent sheet changes, and it all made sense. She had peed the bed, and well, me too. Okay, not a sleepover technically, but more of a trip. My class went to a trip away and the boys slept in one room and the girls in another. Now, on one of the last days of this week-long trip, one of the boys in my class decided it would be a great idea for all of us to play together at the same time. So a group of 17 boys playing furiously in their sleeping bags was one of the most what the freak am I doing moments in my life, and that is a moment that I'll never forget. Also, at a school ski trip one year, there would be speed playing basically every evening of the week. I still don't know how we came up with this idea that finishing fast was the goal to aim for, or if it was really necessary to show the tissue as proof. But well, at least we had separate beds this time. In hindsight, the whole thing did feel less awkward than it probably should have. Bro, what? At our school, there was a big bunch of us guys. Not exactly all friends, but good friends who had other friends that hung out with them. An extended circle of about 40 mates. One guy, Stuart, was a bit dim. Not amazingly so, just slightly lower than average. He wasn't actually my friend, but we'd talk, played football, and walked home together, but never went out of the way to hang out. Anyways, whilst waiting someplace, we were talking and he told me that there was a game that a few guys played, Soggy Biscuit. The aim was to put a soggy biscuit on a post. After someone calls the start, they'd get their members out, and well, you know, the last one to finish had to eat the soggy biscuit. He then asked if I wanted to go and do it. I said no. Many years later, I'm in a pub and there is Stu, when we start talking and having a few drinks. After a few pints, I ask him if he had any soggy biscuits lately and we had a laugh. He thanked me for not telling others about it and not dropping him as a mate. He then tells me, I loved playing Soggy Biscuit. Most of the time, I used to lose just so I could eat it. Then he says, I used to kick up a fuss about eating it. Later on, I'd refuse to eat it and the others would hold me down and force the biscuit into my mouth. I asked you to join us because I wanted your Soggy Biscuit, and I still do. Here's my number. He then shaked my hand and left. I never called him, but I do wonder if anyone of the extended group joined him. Stu had no chill, and I actually got some more information about him. He got married to a girl, had a baby with her, got caught cheating with a man, and she kicked him out. Months later, she had the kid, but he wasn't allowed to see it. She lives in a terraced house, long row of attached houses with no front garden. He drives by the house to try to look into the windows to see the baby, sees it, gets excited, floors his flatbed truck and crashes into 3 parked cars, gets out and runs off. One of those cars belonged to a mutual friend's brother, who sees him running off and calls the cops. He ends up getting banned from driving, but does start to be able to see his kid. And they got back together. Okay, I thought the previous story was bad, but again, bro, what? Also, where was the sleepover? When I was 7 years old, me and my best friend had heard gunshots outside of his house late one night. It wasn't a completely unusual occurrence, so we didn't think much of it until we went outside the morning after and found his dog had been hit by one of the bullets. Family friends moved to a farm in rural Wisconsin because they thought living on a farm would be fun. The high school kids would drive around the county getting wasted and shooting people's dogs. Because, you know, country folk are normal people. Luckily, their dog only had their leg blown off. When they were finally caught, they had killed over 25 dogs and injured a bunch more. That's some psychopathic stuff right there. You think that's weird? When I was in the 8th grade, a new kid joined in the middle of the year. He was all kinds of awkward. He liked to wear pink shirts and talk about dissecting animals. Someone called him on his apparent BS and found out that he had been catching birds and squirrels to mess with. They straight up told the school on him, so they searched his house and found a crap ton of dead animals, including birds wrapped in duct tape, that were still alive when he did it. I just don't get how messed up people can get. I used to light popsicle sticks on fire and drop them in the tub. Real tough kid I was. Okay, well, I just want to say I hope those country kids got shown the country justice after hurting those dogs. As for that last kid, I'm pretty sure that's how the show Dexter started off. The serial killer, not the laboratory. When I was a kid, my mom had a friend who would always bring her son over to hang out. Anyways, they arranged a sleepover for us that he was especially stoked about. So when it's lights out, he almost immediately starts crying. He kept saying my mom wanted a girl over and over. I'm still not sure what the hell happened. Staying the night at a friend's house with a bunch of our buddies, when we were all in our mid-teens. We're all sleeping on the floor in this large room, fairly spaced apart, almost zero light. The slightly older sister of a friend whose house it was had been flirting with one of the guys all night, and while we were asleep, she snuck into the room. I think I was the only one still awake. From what I could make out in the darkness, she crawled over to the guy she had been flirting with, slid under his blankets, and got on top of him and started doing stuff. He had the biggest grin on his face the next morning and would answer, "I'm just happy to be here with you guys," whenever asked. I was in preschool and was sleeping at a friend's house down the street with my sister. In the middle of the night, I woke up to screaming and glass shattering, so I got out of bed and followed the noise into the lounge room. His parents were screaming at each other, and when they saw me, the mother came running over and pushed me into the bedroom and shut the door. Not something I'll forget anytime soon. A friend's mom and her fella started doing the deed when they thought everyone was asleep. I wasn't. His mom thought she was being quiet. She wasn't. And being a 14-year-old boy, I could not help but, do the needful thing. Dude, I was over at my friend's for a sleepover one time when I was like 11, and his parents just started going at it in the bedroom next door. It's like 7 p.m., and they have like 6 kids, and they're all awake. My friend just looks at me and casually says, "Mom, please," and then goes back to playing video games. I actually had a similar moment when I had to apartment sit for my brother one time, and his neighbor was definitely having a good night from what I could hear. She sounded kinda hot too. When I was younger, I spent the night at a friend's house for her birthday. All the other girls were asleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was bored, so I went to the bathroom and started playing with her mom's makeup and hair care products. What's the worst that could happen, right? Well, I got a chunk of my coarse, curly hair stuck in a hairbrush. I could not for the life of me get it out. I was too afraid to go rummaging around in the kitchen for scissors because I didn't want to wake up the other girls. So I tried pulling really hard and ripped out my hair. A full chunk of hair about 3 inches wide. I pulled it all out, crying silently the whole time, and then spent the rest of the night picking my hair out of the hairbrush with blood rolling down my forehead. It was traumatic. My conclusion? Sleepovers are dangerous. Once I had a friend over and he puked what looked like a gallon of mashed potatoes in my bed and blamed it on my 15-pound dog who was locked up in his kennel. Stupid Brad. I was about 8 or 9 years old at my mate's house watching The Exorcist. My mate's dad thought it would be funny to go outside and lift the window shutter and scream through the window. It was freaking terrifying. I wet the bed at a friend's house one time. The next morning, I told him that I grabbed some lemonade from the fridge in the middle of the night and spilled the whole cup. I was like 8, and they didn't have lemonade. Another kid and I got into the same sleeping bag and touched our things together because we thought it would mean that we lost our virginities. The other boys sat in a circle around us, egging us on. It was actually a lot like the last scene of Requiem for a Dream. Damn, I forgot about that movie. And that last scene was pretty crazy. New Year's Eve 99 to 2000. I was about 12. I woke up with a sleeping bag full of pee and my hand in a bowl of water. Until the end of the year, they made fun of me for not being Y2K compliant. I had a big birthday party sleepover when I was 11 or 12 and invited a bunch of my friends to spend the night. My mom made me invite the kid from down the road who was in my grade and never really got noticed. He was really small and took a lot of medicine. Anyways, he wet the bed that night and was humiliated by everyone there, including me. I saw him on the bus the following week and felt bad about what happened, and we hung out most weekends until the end of high school. He told me that he had a liver transplant in kindergarten and was facing some serious health threats in the future. And last summer his liver failed and he passed away in hospice care at the age of 25. We lost touch after high school, which is what happened with most of my old friends. He messaged me on Facebook this time last year, wanting to catch up. We chatted for a bit and I told him that I would visit him the next time I was in town. He didn't say anything about his failing health, and I wish he had. I would have made a special trip back home to see him. It's been a year and I've been thinking about him more than usual lately. I miss him a lot. Man, that was a tough read. I always look back on those awkward friends or classmates that I had in high school and wondered if they had any medical or mental health issues. Not something you think about when you're young. Not particularly eventful or spicy, but when I was in middle school, my friend had a birthday sleepover with about 8 or 10 girls. Around 10 p.m., we decided to all sneak out and go TP some boy's house. We go and TP the house. Then we realize we are lost, and we don't know how to get back to her house. So we find the closest main road and just start walking down it. About 8 to 10 middle school girls in their PJs. So naturally, a police officer stopped us and asked what we were doing up so late. Must have been a really awesome cop because we make up some stupid story about looking for a lost cat. We all pile into the car and he takes us back to her house, where we ask him to turn off the lights and let us walk up. This is a true story, but you probably won't believe it is. I was staying the night at a friend's house when I was 8 years old. My foster brother was there too. My friend asks if we want to see a cool trick. We say yes. He lays down on the floor, pulls his pants down and lifts his feet up to his face. He's wearing tighty whities, but what happens next is so crystal clear in my memory. He farts and a small black spot about the size of a dime begins to darken by his butt. Then it gets darker and a hole appears before my eyes. He burnt a hole through his underwear with his fart. See, I told you you wouldn't believe me. I didn't believe it either. We told him to do it again, and he did. This time I watched very closely, and after a minute of him getting a fart ready, he lets loose the same quiet fart with the short and the fresh pair of briefs began to darken. My foster brother and I are standing by, watching this feat with scientific scrutiny. The dime-sized spot goes darker and darker, but it doesn't look wet. There's no flame, though it looked like I was watching something burn in the sun. You know how sunlight makes flames nearly invisible? That's how this fart looked by the light of the bedroom lamp. So then the hole forms and all of this takes place in just 4 or 5 seconds. There is a little smoke, though I may have imagined it. The smell is like a fart plus hot rubber. My foster brother and I deliberated and requested a third demonstration. He says he shouldn't because his mom gets mad when he burns holes in his underwear. It's not aliens or ghosts or Bigfoot. It's a young boy with the ability to burn a hole through his cotton underwear with his flatulence. And I swear to God that it's true. Another odd thing was that his brother came in an hour earlier and offered us toothpaste. When we declined, he shrugged and ate a third of the tube in one squeeze. I'm sure I already said this a bunch this video, but bro, what? This one time my high school friend jumped from a 3rd floor and fell into a coma. We were having a guys' night, getting wasted, everything was normal. My friend and his cousin decided to light up some herb. My phone rang and it was my friend's mom. She wanted to talk to him since his phone was out of battery. He was sitting on the couch and I was heading towards him with my phone in my hand. When he saw me heading for him, he freaked the freak out like he saw some kind of demon or monster or something, and ran to the balcony and just jumped. He hit his head on a tree going down and fell into a coma and was out for 2 years and a bit. He ended up waking up one day like everything was normal, but he ended up dying a few hours later due to organ failure. His parents blame me since they believe I was the one that handed him the stuff and all that, and that I was the one to blame for inducing the fear that made him jump. My conscience is clear, but what I had to go through to not be seen as responsible, police, family, his and mine, friends and colleagues, was hell. Damn, that's a crazy story, but am I the only person who had a childhood that didn't involve getting wasted? My best friend was a very tomboyish girl, and one time when I was younger, I was sleeping over at her house. This time, 2 of her attractive female cousins happened to be there for the evening as well. They started talking about how they had never seen a peepee, and were asking me to show them. Now, I was a very shy kid and raised by very conservative parents, so this took a little persuading. But after an hour of them asking, this is definitely one of 50 piles. I got him to the bathroom, and he looked at me and said, "Guess what?" I said what, and then he started peeing his pants and laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. I got him back to his bed and he barfed again. This was like the 4th or 5th pile. I had only gotten 1 cleaned up so far. And not cleaned up very well, I was kinda wasted. He got out of bed and took his pee-soaked pants and underwear off and was looking for new pants. And that's when I decided I had enough. I wasn't going to deal with the barf and a naked person who was going to do nothing to help the situation. On my way out the door, I told his mom that he wasn't feeling well and left. When I got home, my parents knew that I was wasted and grounded me. His mom blamed everything on me and called my parents to tell them that I got her little angel wasted. Any parents that unironically refer to their kid as a little angel is usually a bad parent from my experience. Slept at a friend's house. Friend had a cat. Woke up with the cat sleeping on my face. I panic. Cat panics because I'm panicking. Cat claws my face. I have hated cats ever since. Screw head sleeping cats. I went to visit my aunt in Cali one year, and well, I crashed out on the futon. Come to find out, said futon was normally the cat's bed. At first, I flattened it out to a normal bed, but I kept waking up with this gigantic fat cat sleeping on me, or snuggled up so close I couldn't help but wake up. So I think, screw this time I just leave it on the couch. Had the weirdest dream I couldn't breathe and woke up in a panic to a 19-pound cat sleeping on my damn head. Well, this is just another reason for me not to like cats. That's it for this video. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. It's linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching and we'll see you guys next time. Students of Reddit, what's the story of the worst teacher you ever had? Had a science teacher that insisted cells were not made of atoms and that therefore either leaves weren't alive or diamonds were. When I was at primary school, for ages I think around 7 or 8 till 11 in the UK, we had a class on human reproduction education. A kid asked the teacher about female eggs and how that works, only for her to scream at him that women do not have eggs and not to be stupid. Screw you, Brighton Junior School. This was about my class in the 9th grade. We were about 15 or 16 then. We had chemistry and we were learning about atoms and molecules. Almost everyone in class thought there was a molecule for everything, like a strawberry molecule for example. Then when I pointed out that they must have misunderstood it all, they acted like I was dumb or something. Look at stupid Brenda over here doesn't understand that there's a strawberry molecule. I had a math teacher who would leave the class to ask another teacher how to do certain math problems. Sometimes he'd be gone as long as 30 minutes during a 50-minute class period. Suffice to say, no one in that class learned much math. If it makes you feel any better, the teacher probably was given the class against his wishes. Math classes are often very hard to fill, particularly since they are a challenging set of skills for not much pay, compared to other opportunities. As such, schools sometimes ask unqualified people to teach math class because they need someone. I can confirm, I was supposed to teach math one year, and the school called me on a Friday before school started and informed me that they needed me to teach science instead, and if I could please come in over the weekend to set up my lab. Do you know how much prep should go into a successful year of science? You basically should set up your curriculum in advance, plan out all the lab exercises, lobby your school for the money, and order all the supplies. You can't just walk in and wing a year of science with 130 kids when you've never taught the subject before. As you can tell, I'm not bitter at all. All of these stories remind me of how bad substitute teachers are. Like, I think my old high school just got random people off the streets to teach. I once had a sub who wore doctor's hairnets over his shoes and asked me what I wanted to be in life. When I said I wanted to make films, he laughed in my face and said that's not happening. Education is a joke in the States. My English lit professor was late to class every day. She was clearly on substances. On top of that, she didn't even shower. Her hair was matted, and she was so rude. She gave us homework and never took it up or graded it, and then would show up and say it's test day with no warning. I had to drop the class after I failed the first test. I believe most of the class dropped after that exam as well, and she didn't come back next semester. I mean, if she was on substances, then clearly the English class was pretty lit. One time while taking an exam in my Calculus 2 class, I got a random bloody nose that dripped right onto the test. After explaining what happened, my teacher said if I leave the room to go clean up, I wouldn't be able to retake the test. My options were to grab another test and start over halfway through without being able to copy my previous answers, or leave and fail the exam. I walked out of the classroom and withdrew before I even got to my car. You should have bled all over the test and handed it in. And with that evidence, if they kept it, went to the dean or someone else in administration. I have steady nosebleeds of up to a minute every now and then, and that's while lying down. I honestly couldn't take the chance of continuing to write while I bled for just a gotcha moment with a jerk teacher. FYI, as a nosebleeder myself, don't lay down when you got one. In case you didn't know, tilting your head back is also a lie. Both things just make it worse. This is about my Welsh professor. She assigned textbooks that were out of print, couldn't explain anything to save her life, responded to questions by memory keeps coming back to me sometimes. I don't know why I think about it, I just do. Hearing that story made me really think that I probably would have taken part in that joke, because saying deja vu sounds kinda cool. But I could see how it would suck if you didn't like the joke. I was once humiliated by my teacher because the guy I had a crush on was in another class, came into our classroom to ask my teacher something. A lot of my classmates started giggling, and one of them called my name for several desks away, as if I possibly didn't notice that my crush had entered the room. I was the one that ended up getting in trouble, and the teacher threatened to send me into my crush's class and have everyone laugh at me, even though I hadn't said or done anything besides go bright red. My bad for having friends who knew I liked a boy, I guess. Not saying what happened was right, but I'm embarrassed as freak by everyone's behavior. I wouldn't wish any aspect of this situation on anybody, but God, that teacher hated me. This was a gym teacher. The other kids would often bully me and sometimes beat me up. She would only intervene if I fought back, and that was to punish me and me alone. I went to the guidance counselor one time after getting kicked out and told him what happened. He called her and she said I was the one attacking them and they did nothing, since she was the teacher and I was the student. You can guess who the guidance counselor believed. This was my entire elementary school life. I could have 6 jerks pushing me around, calling me names, hitting me, trying to pants me, etc. That's all fine. Throw one punch and break their nose, detention for a week. Literally had the exact same thing happen to me as well. I would get ISS, in-school suspension, and the other girl would get nothing. I am also a girl, but I was a very tall 12-year-old. So whenever I would fight back, they would assume I caused more damage, even though I was the one being picked on and did not start the fight and was only defending myself. Years later, my mom said they wanted to permanently suspend me, but she threatened to sue them since they admitted to her that I was the one being bullied and couldn't do anything about it in writing. Good thing though is the ISS teacher was very nice to me and would let me do whatever I wanted as long as I did all my homework and stayed quiet. Got a lot of good quality reading done. I had the opposite effect with teachers in school. Every time I was about to get into a fight, one magically appeared. I remembered one time I was in gym and this kid was walking up to me, ready to fight me, and my math teacher showed up out of nowhere and stopped us. It's like she had instant transmission. A teacher once told me that sand was a liquid because you could pour it. I then raised my hand and told her that if you had enough big containers, you could pour bowling balls. The class laughed and about 10 minutes later I sneezed. She thought I said BS and sent me to the principal's office. The worst teacher I ever had was my shop/gym teacher in high school. He would not do anything at all. I was able to smoke in shop class and in gym as long as I was outside running laps or something. I never once heard him tell anyone about safety measures when using shop equipment. A few people got hurt and one actually lost half a thumb, but the worst thing he ever did was hire some of the grade 9 and grade 10 girls to babysit for him and his wife. He would leave his wife at the bar and go home to check on the kids, and was eventually caught hooking up with one of them. After a police investigation, they found a ton of homemade content on his laptop of him hooking up with these girls. Last I heard, he went to jail for life. This was all in a town of less than 300 people. Similar thing happened to a hall monitor I knew. Dude went on to be a coach at another school and was apparently doing pretty well. Threw it all away because he started to date a student. What an idiot. In the 5th grade, I had a teacher who disliked me because I was bullied a lot and she had to take care of it and talk to my parents a lot. One day I was playing kickball and got borderline assaulted by some kids and she saw, came over, and let them go inside. She looked at me covered in dirt and said, "Don't go telling your dad about this." Next day, my dad went into the school and had a very long talk with this teacher and the principal. I'm pretty sure she was hoping the school year would end sooner. Damn, I had the same teacher in the same grade who would never stop screaming at one student named Nate. I ended up kind of becoming friends with him, but didn't see him much after 7th grade. It got to the point where it seemed like she would go out of her way to find some reason to scream at him. She even screamed at him when some student smuggled a staple gun into the lunchroom and began firing it at Nate, claiming he was doing horseplay or something. The kid with the staple gun got away scot-free. Same kid also hit me with the rubber band next year until I almost cursed. Luckily, my teacher was really friendly and said, "Well, I would have too. That really hurts." I had a computer science teacher who didn't really teach the class. First day of school, he stood up and said, "I'm going to be honest with you guys. We're going to be learning this material together." He then pushed us all into online code camps. The beginning of every class, he also spent about the first 20 minutes going over anything under the sun except for programming. If your phone went off at any point during class, he said that you had to buy the entire class donuts, but he was exempt from this rule. My programming teacher also had similar teaching strategies. The first day he said, "You guys will just be learning on codes and I'm gonna monitor you." He then proceeded to play the Winnie the Pooh baseball video game every class, even promising kids A's if they could beat it on the hardest difficulty, as the rest of us struggled to actually program. First off, where can I play Winnie the Pooh baseball, because I always hear about that game? And secondly, my economics teacher in college had the same rule about donuts. His phone actually went off once and the whole class was like, "Ooh," and he bought us donuts the next class. It was awesome. Some crazy substitute we had for geography hit the computer monitor to the floor because of a fly. It landed beside me and I nudged it off with my paper. My elbow knocked the dictionary off the table and I was, and I quote, isolated from class for throwing a dictionary across the room. I was pissed off. When I was in kindergarten, my first teacher got pregnant, so she had to take maternity leave. She then got replaced with a substitute teacher to teach my class for the rest of the school year. She was very strict and she was not very nice. I had issues with her, but I was a very good student, quiet and to myself. One day I asked her that I had to use the bathroom, but she refused to let me go. I really had to go, but ended up peeing myself. I remember going to the nurse and they called my mom. My mom went to the school and had a meeting with the teacher, the principal, and someone else. 2 days later, that teacher was fired. At least she didn't do the, I don't know, can you? Bit when you asked to go to the bathroom. Every time a teacher did that, I wish I peed myself. I remember my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Doge, being super strict. She was pregnant and took maternity leave. The substitute was the nicest teacher ever, and she was appalled that Mrs. Doge had never read us a single book. When I was in the 9th grade, the school I went to could not afford enough books for everyone in the English classes to have a copy to take home. They only had like 30 copies and they had like 4 classes of 25 students. So what they did was have us read in class. But rather than have each of us read to ourselves, the teacher read to us. I think this was because they wanted the entire class to be at the same place in the book. This was the 9th grade. It was a little insulting in my opinion to have the teacher read to us. The teacher quickly realized that it's no fun reading the same chapter to 25 students 4 times a day. So she brought a tape recorder and would record herself reading to the first class. The 3 other classes got to sit there and listen to the recording of her reading the chapter while she sat at her desk doing God knows what. I've never been one of those who liked wasting time, so I went to the library and checked out a copy of whatever book we were reading and would read it at home. I would finish it in a couple of nights, whereas it would take a week or more to have it read to us in class. The English class was my second to last class of the day, so I would use that time to do homework from my other classes that day. Ideally, not to have any work to do after school. An English teacher I had in high school asked the class to spend half of the class in the library, finding a love poem. I chose Sonnet 130 by Shakespeare. It's not your standard love poem. It says nothing nice about the lady until the very end. She failed me on the project. The very next project was to choose a poem that described our general feelings around the time. I chose a poem from the Existentialists. I don't recall exactly which one, but it was about bad thoughts, if you catch my drift. Again, I failed the project. I never forgot her response after I read it aloud. Why would you choose something so awful and sad? A girl in the class said, maybe that's how he feels. She sent me to the principal's office for punishment. By the end of that year, I was in the mental hospital for acting on those bad thoughts. I was there for 3 months. I feel bad for the OP in this story. I had an English teacher that failed me because I used the words explosions in the sky for a poem, and she told me I plagiarized because that was the name of a band. My next poem was about how my English teacher sucked, and I got a passing grade. I was so confused. In middle school, I'm in college now, I had the displeasure of experiencing a married math/humanities teacher duo who were horrible people and took their relationship issues out on their students. The math teacher was just extremely freaking weird and would go on strange rants, scream, and clip her toenails in class, and clip her nails in class. This happened during a test once. The only sound that could be heard was pencil scratching and the clipping of her nails. I still remember it and shudder. She also made up ridiculously hard to follow technical rules about formatting that would ruin your grade and even put you in detention if you didn't follow them correctly, like drawing the exact margins on homework, boxing answers, and getting all of your work signed by a parent. I was a good kid, but went to detention for the first time that year. Eventually, half the class was in and out of detention every week. Worst of all, she seemed to single out her students to torment at random. I, a small shy emo Hispanic girl, was her favorite target. I remember her once yelling at me in class to the point of making me cry for fidgeting with my eraser. She described it as playing with dirt. She brought it up relentlessly in class for a month, calling me dirty in front of my classmates. The worst thing is that when she saw my friend eating a cookie in the hall, for some reason, she absolutely flipped her lid and tried to force her to spit the cookie into her hand because eating in the hall was not allowed, a rule that was never enforced. My friend apologized but naturally refused, swallowing the cookie that was already in her mouth, and thought that was that. The teacher continued to scream at her, got her detention, and tried to get her suspended. Her husband was the humanities teacher. Think history, current events, and social studies. He was, to put it lightly, a blatant racist. When we talked about the Holocaust or the slave trade, he would ham-fistedly point out the Jewish or black kids in the class and basically be like, just like your ancestors, and keep bringing up the kids as examples despite clearly making them uncomfortable. This wasn't even the most blatantly offensive part. During parent-teacher conferences, he literally told my mom, an immigrant, and myself to our faces that I was late and often valued socialization over hard work because I was a Latina. He said something along the lines of, just because it's okay in your culture doesn't make it okay here. I taught in Costa Rica once. I should know. I was a meticulous worker who would chat with friends here and there, but not excessively, which of course wasn't the most messed up part about his statement. Me and my mother were speechless, and she didn't say anything, but there was tears in her eyes, and she was understandably mortified and angry. His words hurt me, but it hurt most of all to see her like that and feel so helpless. They both continuously berated me in class and gave me unreasonably bad grades. I was a quiet, extremely shy, hardworking kid, known for being a bit of a goody two-shoes. Before their classes, I never had any academic difficulty, and humanities was my favorite subject. After a while, I shrunk completely. I stopped trying in both of their classes. I was so ashamed, frustrated, and scared of them. My already low self-esteem dropped considerably, and my anxiety in the class situations worsened. Although I consider myself to be quite intelligent and was able to still get A's after their classes, all throughout high school, I retained any aversion to speaking to my teachers and contributing in class, causing my academic life to suffer quite a bit. So Mr. and Mrs. Penn, F you, and I'm glad you got fired and divorced. I hated teachers like this, and being a kid who spoke up, I often got in trouble. I once told my film teacher that he was ruining people's projects with his input. For example, one kid had this dramatic film that was supposed to end with a murder scene. Our teacher thought it would be better if the guy was tied up and had syrup poured on him. It was the stupidest idea ever. Oh, and he loved adding fart jokes to everything. My second grade teacher was Sister Bridget. She didn't like me at all. One day I was feeling ill and I asked to use the restroom. She told me I was lying as she tried to tell me why I was a liar, which led me to vomit all over her shoes. Maybe it was a holy vomit. Okay, maybe not the worst teacher, but definitely the strangest. Mr. Pratt. He was a substitute teacher I had in high school in the 90s. Inner city school, he was an older black dude with a loud mouth. There were a lot of jerk students though, who always mouthed back to every teacher, which made learning difficult. Mr. Pratt had an odd choice when responding to these kids. Imagine a well-dressed but definitely urban-sounding substitute who, when a student tried to act out, would pull out a freaking puppet, obviously custom-made and looked just like him, suit and all, out of his desk. He would then start berating the student via the puppet. The puppet was called Pratt Daddy, by the way. He would make the student talk to the puppet and apologize. Most didn't. They were laughing and tried to talk over Pratt Daddy, in which case Pratt Daddy, the puppet, would kick them out of class and lock the door. Then the puppet went back into the desk drawer and Mr. Pratt continued his lessons. It was odd. I feel like that is something you would have seen on a sitcom. But Pratt Daddy would have probably hit the students with a stick. My former tutor for year 9, also the art teacher, she refused to take action when somebody created a Snapchat account under my name and sent unclothed images to dozens of people around my school. Shortly after this, I got into a fight because a guy was still pissed about the Snapchat situation and punched me in the jaw when I had a retainer. From this, she decided to secretly send loads of emails to my mother suggesting that I, more than likely, have autism. I have since basically been forced into getting checked up on, only for doctors to confirm that I don't have enough symptoms for a diagnosis. She treated me really poorly in the art lessons and did very little to get involved with me when I reported or got witness being bullied. That's it for this video. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. It's linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching and we'll see you guys next time.
What overlooked fact from a movie will completely change the way I see it? In Return of the Jedi, it's implied that the Ewoks feast on human flesh when they were going to cook the gang on spits. At the end of the movie, there's certainly more than enough stormtrooper fillets to go around. Saving Private Ryan. In the beginning, when they're clearing out the trenches and bunkers after taking the beach, 2 German soldiers come out with their hands up and yelling, seemingly trying to surrender. They're both shot dead, and the American soldier says they were saying, "Look, I washed for supper." It was actually in Czech, not German. And the man was saying, "Please don't shoot me. I'm not German. I'm Czech. I didn't kill anyone. I'm Czech." He was a Czech taken prisoner by the Germans and forced to fight for them. It made me sad when I learned that one. All the traps in Goonies are designed so that one person can make it through alive, especially if he or she is taken hostage and forced through the tunnels. The ship is rigged to be able to be sailed by a crew of the way they do because it's simply weird to sing and dance in the rain. However, the previous scene sets the time at around 2 a.m., so it makes more sense thinking they probably see him as a ridiculous drunkard who's finally going home after a night of binging. Shaun of the Dead. Spoilers ahead. The entire plot is revealed at the start of the movie. We'll have a Bloody Mary, first thing. Mary gets impaled and dies. A bite at the king's head. Philip is bitten. A couple, David and Di, at the little princess, Liz. A stagger when they pretend to be zombies. Down by the bar for shots, killing zombies. Talk about great filmmaking. The entire plot of Home Alone is set into motion when Kevin gets into a fight with his family over spilled milk. Fight Club. When Tyler Durden calls the narrator back in the phone booth, the camera slowly tracks towards the phone. On the left of the phone, a notice can be seen saying, "No incoming calls allowed." When Tyler and the narrator are on the bus, the long-haired guy pushes past Tyler without a word, then says, "Excuse me," as he pushes past the narrator. When Tyler and the narrator hit the first car with baseball bats, Tyler hits first, but the alarm is triggered only after the narrator hits. There are so many littered throughout the movie. In Pinocchio, there's a group of men kidnapping boys and somehow magically turning them into donkeys. And absolutely nothing is done to stop this. And it's not like the consequences of it go away. Pinocchio keeps the donkey ears and tail for the duration of the movie. The movie just ends and everyone forgets that this is still happening. Kind of a dark ending there, Disney. In The Fifth Element, the bad guy, Zorg, and the hero, Corbin Dallas, never actually meet, or even really know about each other. In fact, Corbin works for and is fired by Zorg via the cab company. The closest they get to each other is getting into/out of elevators on the cruise ship just before it blows up. In the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, not many people understand why Hal went crazy and murdered the crew of the Discovery, or anything that happened after that. Hal was programmed to relay information 100% accurately and completely, but the government types ordered Hal to keep the actual objective of their deep space mission secret, the mission to investigate the signal sent from the monolith on the moon to Jupiter orbit, all for petty political reasons. Hal took these conflicting orders and came to the only conclusion a computer could come to eliminate the conflict. He first decides to try to halt communication with Earth. He triggers a fault in the relay antenna, so the crew would need to take it offline. When he realizes that the crew is considering taking him offline for his odd behavior, he panics. The best solution now seems obvious. Eliminate the humans, and he won't have to conceal the details of the mission. Conflict averted. His logic is cold to a fault. Of course, Dave Bowman survives and is able to deactivate Hal. What happens next is sort of glossed over in the movie. David spends months in space alone, with zero communication with anyone, farther away from any other human being than anyone has ever been. He goes into a sort of autopilot mode. He does his daily duties and those of Frank, his dead co-pilot. He runs the huge ship with flawless efficiency. He practically becomes a machine himself. Nothing but the mission. After the remainder of his flight, he arrives at the monolith orbiting Jupiter. He flies a pod to the surface of it to study it, and realizes that there is no surface. It's a gateway. He enters the gate, and this is where the weird eyeball trippy effects heavy breathing takes place, and flies through a wormhole, a stargate, to to a very far away star in a distant galaxy. On his way, he passes over some alien landscapes and some other weird spaceships. When he arrives, he lives out the rest of his human life. He spends like 30 plus years in that weird empty room, getting older in complete isolation. When he finally dies of old age, the aliens who created the monoliths, who placed one on Earth in prehistoric times and used it to teach hominids how to use tools, who buried one on the moon with an alarm that when it would be discovered would point the way to the Stargate, who created that room for David to live in, and where they fed him and studied him, gathered his consciousness and turned him into one of them, a being of energy and knowledge. He took the form of a floating baby and decided to revisit humanity. The whole film is a speculation on evolution of humanity, from the origin of man to the final result, from a creature who discovers tools to save their race, to a creature who relies on tools and machines to expand their horizons, to a creature who's nearly destroyed by those machines, to becoming something of a living machine, the best of both worlds, to a creature who is enlightened past such petty things as using machines to kill each other. Ariel from The Little Mermaid can write in English. We know this because she signed her name quite beautifully on a contract after she read it. So why didn't she attempt to communicate via written word with Eric? Instead of just writing in the sand, she immediately resorts to clumsy charades. In the 1990 version of Total Recall, the character Quaid, played by Schwarzenegger, gets a dream implant and either gets the girl and saves the planet by making Mars's sky blue, or he has a psychotic episode from an implant that went off course and is lobotomized. The movie was apparently designed to be specifically unclear which, so the viewer is compelled to see the movie multiple times. The tech who sets up the implant prior to a possible psychotic episode caused by the procedure says of the implant, "That's a new one, blue sky on Mars." District 9 is not in fact about apartheid. In Neil Blomkamp's short Alive in Joburg, on which D9 is based, there were similar interviews to those at the beginning of District 9. The difference is that all of those interviews were real. The filmmakers simply asked residents of Johannesburg what they thought of immigrants from Zimbabwe, and they received the remarkably hostile responses. The film isn't just a parallel to apartheid, but more about the current sentiment towards immigrants right now. In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Ferris's constant complaint and his justification for many of his shenanigans is that his parents won't buy him a car. Toward the end of the movie, when Ferris's mom is driving his sister home from picking her up at the police station, there's a quick throwaway where mom complains that all this mess screwed up the deal she was working on, and that the money from the deal was supposed to be used to buy Ferris a car. Ferris ended up screwing himself out of the car he so desperately wanted. In Independence Day, one often mocked scene in the movie is when Jeff Goldblum uses a regular old MacBook to hack into the alien ship and disable with a virus. The obvious question is, how did they do this? It's simple. They cut a scene out, who knows why, where it was all explained that all of our modern technology, computers, microchips, everything, was all reverse engineered from the crashed fighter. Hence why Goldblum was able to hack into the alien ship. He knew the code already. Once you know this fact, those entire scenes make sense. This scene was shot and it was added to later versions of the movie, including the DVD release. But the original theatrical release and the VHS release did not have them. The main plot of The Matrix was supposed to use human brains as processors for machines, not power sources. That's why Neo could do all those things. He could interact with the code more fully. In Lilo and Stitch, Lilo looks after a fish named Pudge who she claims controls the weather. Lilo's parents died in a car accident due to bad weather. For me, it explains a lot of Lilo's behavior. In Pan's Labyrinth, it's real. It's not just a little girl's fantasy. She's actually a princess and everything that happens is real. Almost everything in the story can be explained by coincidence or imagination. Except for one thing. At the end, the guard guarding her room is told to kill her if she leaves. That is the only exit and the windows are too high and barred. So the only way she could get out is if the chalk actually worked. This was confirmed by Guillermo del Toro. The chestbuster scene in the first Alien movie was almost completely ad-libbed. Scott wanted to get as natural a reaction as possible from the actors, so he didn't clue them in as to what was to happen. They were told something shocking was to happen in the scene, but not exactly what. The reactions you see as the blood sprays over everything are as real as they can get. The genie completely scammed Aladdin. Aladdin asked the genie to make me a prince. He then goes on to suffer for lying about being a prince and learns a valuable lesson about being truthful in himself. He asked to be a prince, not to look like one, not to have everything a prince has, to be an actual prince. He should have land and titles and a bloodline now. When Jafar wishes to become sultan, he becomes the sultan. The previous one is stripped of his land, even his clothes. Why didn't this happen for Aladdin when he made the exact same wish? In Pulp Fiction, when Butch had to go back to his house to get his watch, the reason Vincent didn't react to Butch making Pop-Tarts and just making general noise is because he thought Butch was Marcellus Wallace. Vincent thought Marcellus was back from getting food, which is why you see Butch randomly running into Marcellus. He's holding a box of food and coffee. Jack Nicholson's character from The Shining was originally to be played by Robin Williams, but Kubrick thought he was too crazy for the role. Let me say that again. Robin Williams was too crazy, so the alternative was Jack fricking Nicholson. In The Big Lebowski, Donnie is the physical manifestation of the movie's theme. If you think about it, nobody knows anything throughout the entire film. Bunny and the Nihilists think there's actual money out there. Mr. Lebowski thinks Bunny's actually been kidnapped. And obviously the dude and Walter have no idea what's happening. You can see this in Donnie's character in a few ways. First, he's constantly told to shut up because he's out of his element and acting like a child that wanders into the middle of a movie and wants to know what's happening. Second, his character has absolutely no influence on the film's plot, which is unheard of when it comes to a character with that much screen time. And lastly, after everyone in the film finally figures out what's happening and ignorance is vanquished, Donnie dies. 300 is told by a Spartan, the soldier Leonidas sent away before the final battle, as a story to motivate other Spartans right before they charge at the ending credits, which is the real-life Battle of Plataea, where a united Greek force decimated the Persian army. This is why the film contains so many fantastical elements, such as bombs, elephants, giant monsters, why the immortals had fangs, and things like that. The whole story is just propaganda told to soldiers to make the Spartans seem superpowered and the Persians evil monsters. The implication is that much of it is exaggerated for dramatic effect so the soldiers would fight harder. Moulin Rouge. Satine dies from tuberculosis, which is a contagious disease. She very likely gave it to Christian. He'll probably die from it, while the Duke was spared from that. In addition, the livelihood of the Moulin Rouge was dependent upon the Duke's money. The scenes with Christian writing his novel are set against the backdrop of an abandoned and destroyed Moulin Rouge. Satine's choice to do things for love literally destroyed the lives of everyone she cared about. In Forrest Gump, Lieutenant Dan seemed furious that Forrest was awarded a Medal of Honor. However, as Lieutenant Dan was his first officer in his chain of command, he would have had to be the one that originally suggested it. Superman Returns. The boyfriend, Richard, played by James Marsden, is all around a very great fellow. He's a pilot, loving father figure, and all around a Superman. Superman, on the other hand, leaves Lois because, best explanation, he felt like it. He comes back years later and expects her to continue where they last left off, as if years haven't gone by. She hasn't found someone else, has a kid, and that he left her to go have a vacation in space. Of course, ultimately, despite it all, she chooses Superman, because no matter how great of a person you are, you don't compare to Superman. Some salt on the wound is the revelation that it was Superman's kid, the kid he left behind and left Lois to take care of on her own. Oh yeah, he also saves Superman's life, and Superman's like, thanks loser, I'ma still take your family away. What a jerk. The film Watchmen depicts how many different world events would have been with superheroes present, especially Dr. Manhattan. For example, the Vietnam War is won by the US in a week with Dr. Manhattan's help, and the famous photo of a sailor kissing a nurse when World War II ends becomes a picture of a female superhero kissing that same nurse. There are 10 million changes, many of them extremely significant, that all occur in world history because of the addition of superheroes. So at the beginning of the movie, there's a montage of superhero history with a scene of the Night Owl punching out a thug outside the stage door of a movie theater. But guess what? The signs in the background show the production in question to be Die Flirtema, the Bat. The venue is Gotham Opera House, and the couple emerging from the theater in the left side of the frame are presumably Martha and Thomas Wayne. They even threw in a Batman poster just to really drive the hint home. In the Watchmen universe, Bruce Wayne never becomes Batman because his parents aren't killed. In the 8th Harry Potter movie, during the scene when Harry and McGonagall confront Snape in the Great Hall, as Snape is escaping, he redirects one of McGonagall's spells to hit the Carrow twins who are standing behind him. He's trying to help Harry, while still not revealing his cover to Voldemort. The Land Before Time. Notice at the end, Littlefoot finds the Great Valley after running through a dark tunnel with a light at the end. He then finds this paradox.
Apparently, shift to fast forward, E to highlight interacted objects, control, left mouse button, configuration event action, space to change input, map section, space. Oh, new record added to archives. Dear employees, due to the recent events of the morning of April 18th, 1994, the management decided to close all company's facilities until further notice. Henceforth, you're fired. All workers will be compensated for non-working days, except the days that you didn't work, and never the days that you won't ever not work. Thanks to the correctly conducted emergency evacuation procedures, all employees left the company's main building safely. Nobody was hurt. The reason for the alarm going off is not yet known. To ensure future work safety, the management decided to conduct an inspection of all the company's facilities by a specialized department under the sister company, Agrest Industries. Please remain calm and wait for further information on the reopening of the company. Sincerely, this is weird. There was an incident that was bad enough to literally close the company for the foreseeable future? Alright, whatever. I guess they didn't expect it to be very long. I'm supposed to avoid you. Get out of my face! Oh, I am playing. Interesting. Oh no, I'm not gonna like this game, am I? Oh, we in Mannequin... Why? We in Mannequin Town, apparently. I don't know what I'm supposed to be there. I've got a timer! Wait, I don't know- Why did you do- Wait a minute! I've got a crack in my brain, what is happening? What? What is this? This is too weird. I'm weirded out. I'm skeezed! Alright, it's a little too early for me to be, confused. Who's making noise over there? Huh? Is this that incident that I heard so much about that I'm not afraid of? You ain't gonna scare me? See, I don't know what the noises mean yet, but I know that I am a big brave boy. Big brave man. With chest hair and such. Well, maybe not that, but... Ooh, no. Not important. Why? What? Radio what system is on? What am I doing? Oh no! I did it. Why is it red? Why is it red? I'm fast forwarding? Somehow. That's my sprint. I fast forward. Should I be worried about what happened to the other? Oh my god! Well, I don't know where she came from. I'm pretty sure she wasn't there before, but... Am I supposed to be worried about those noises because I'm not... Once again, big brave... You slender man ass! Maid! Begone, maid! I don't know what What the hell is happening? Oh no, a signal! I better do something about that. Well that's... I'm colorblind now. Probably not good. Probably not. Why? Well, I'm back! Everything's good. Nothing needed to be worrying me at all in the first place. Whoa! It's a good thing my vision is immediately drawn to you. Something enticing about it! I'm not gonna fall for that one! I don't know if I'm falling for anything, but as soon as I hear those footsteps, I'm not about that. I haven't died yet, and I can only assume that my actions have prevented me from suffering of such a fate that would be so heinous that I elixir and make it sound like I'm saying something intelligent.
I don't know what to say, so I asked my Portuguese editor to come up with something clever to put here. That's real smart. I'm so big brain. Just listen to my clever words.
I realize what I'm doing now is just Elixir and do the let's play for me. Come up with something. I am one step closer to building an AI model to replicate me in full. Wow, God, man, this is... I did it! Holy crap, I did it! Man, I'm not gonna be good at doing that in the future. And also, I still don't know what the hell I'm looking for. Didn't give me any idea what I'm supposed to get, but I'm on it, boss. Guess. Nope. Why is this one the scary one? I don't know. I'm gonna go up the stairs? Oh, no I'm not. No I'm not. Beep? Beep. Why beep? What beep? Who's tinkling? Hey! Hey, get out of there! We're supposed to be evacuated. This wasn't open before, was it? That's probably bad. Man, it gets me every time. Okay. I feel like every time I'm wandering into a new area, but I still don't see what I'm going for. Beebe-doo. Okie dokie. Jump, jump. Oh boy. Well, well. Oh, hey, oh, wow, new record! What? Is that dead now? Is that a dead one now? No, I'm... You okay? Why is there an even faster countdown here? Oh, I can't move this camera, fascinating. Okay, well, if that's the only one, that means I got time. I got nothing but time on my hands. What am I looking at? Hands! I see a hand! Oh, ooh, wrench. Mayhaps I could use it to defend myself. From the evil robot? This is a new place. Again, I keep going to new places. How do I keep finding new places? I thought I'm not gonna stay on that one. I thought I would have had my bearings by now, but I do not. Stop! No, this is... Wait, is this familiar? Have I been here? No idea. Not a... Whoa! Not a clue. See, it's like my short-term memory's gotta work because... Whoa! I gotta remember where I last was before I appeared somewhere else. Oh boy. Dunk. Ah, I am amazing. Yeah, because I definitely ain't seen no cafeteria before. But there might be something good. Something good? Hello? Good. Okay, I'm back here. None of this is familiar. I've got no bearings. Is this really good at mixing me up? Nope. Don't trust that. Ah, but I do remember this now. Okay. Oh. Fast forwarding has been disabled. Well, that's not good. Oh boy. Hey! I was doing this. Wait! So if I look at... Yeah, oh, I'm in the pile of scrap now. Okay, I see. I see how it is. Oh, come on. No, boy. Oh, yes, I did it! God, yeah, Dead by Daylight can suck my ass! Talking about the timing of the generators and the stuff like that. I don't play Dead by Daylight. I am a classified man. Yes! Okay, but I just went in a circle. This is not helpful. Whee! I'm fast forwarding. You can't stop me. Come on, how many problems can I have? Oh! I went in a circle. I'm just gonna skip that one. That one's no good. That one's a no-go. Man, poor input 3 here. Really been run through the ringer. Pfft. God, I've been here before. I can't go upstairs. Ah! Oh! What? Input 0. Am I in timeout? Okay, cafeteria again. Good, great, excellent. Oh, there's a third. Ah! Man. I don't know about this one, guys. Nope. I'm not even gonna try. If I see a little bit of a bloop, I'm gonna just run because I'm gonna change it because I don't need to stick around for that. 6 is dead. Input 6 is no good. The name of the game is Input 6. There's something special about Input 6. But what is it? But what is the special thing? I don't even know what the special thing is. This looks like it could have a special thing. Nope. Nope. Nope, just looks important. It ain't, though. Don't worry. It ain't. How can you get in the room if I'm looking right at the door? What? Oh. Oh, God. I'm never gonna get that. Ah! Not gonna get me. You're not gonna get me, pal. I'm probably going the same way I've been going every time with this one, but I don't know and I don't care. What's this? This looks normal. New. Novel. Looks normal and new. There's gotta be something here. You. Frick. I guess. Oh. I guess I never could have gotten that one. Okay. We're just it. I don't like that. I don't like that. You can stop that. You can stop that right now. You can stop that immediately. This is new. No. Is it? No clue. Not a clue. Not a clue. Hey, hello, office. I also think that when some of these things get caught, it gets moved. Or something like that. Something to that effect. What? What? Whoa. What? What is that? What is that? I can't see. It's too dark. What is it? What am I looking at? What was I looking at? Wait. Did you move me? Whoa! 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 Wait! Whoa! No, you didn't move me. What did? Ah! How can you get me if you got the other two? Don't get me. Don't get me. Don't. I'm begging you. There's nothing, but there was a beepo! Nope. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand what I'm looking for. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a single thing that would indicate what it is besides this beeping, and I can't get to the beeping. Can't get to the beeping. Ooh, nice. Well, not nice. I'm fast forwarding. Somehow this is going well. So obviously in this place they were building these things. Maids, the maids, some kind of helpful thing for your everyday life or something like that. How's there a new area every time? Whoa, 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 whoa. How's there a new area? Every time it's a new area, it's like I'm in 6 different buildings. What? What? Huh? Oh. What? I'm gonna watch you. Because clearly I'm not doing this right. And I may be a pile of scrap, but I got a funny feeling I might be one of you too. I might be a maid. Or something of the like. I just want to know what the deal is with this. Oh, I'm in the pile of scrap. So that's what happens. That's why it does that, and I wake up in a new place is because I get... Why? Oh, try switching the input only when necessary. The more times you switch it, the more difficult the gameplay becomes. Well, I didn't know that.